Good morning and good afternoon, wherever the time zone may find you, everybody. I'm Greg Sizemore, Executive Vice President of the Construction Users Roundtable, and we welcome you to an action-packed, information-filled, never-to-be-missed event here at CURT in the November meetings. We are so sorry we couldn't meet down in sunny, warm Florida. Next year, we promise we'll be there and we'll be bigger than better than ever. So I want to thank you for joining us. To encourage you to have a sense of presence and a sense of place, I'm going to ask you to do two things. I want you to engage your camera, so activate the video camera so we can see you. Unless it's totally inappropriate, then do us a favor. And then second, keep the mute button on. And if you have a question, we'll welcome those questions at the appropriate time. Also, I will advise you, thank you all so much. It's good to see you. I'll advise you that we have a chat box cooking on the right-hand side. I would dare say that nearly everyone on this call is familiar with the Zoom functionality and the chat box. But if you're not, 30 seconds, you'll find the mute button and the camera at the bottom of your screen. Just put your cursor over it and you'll see it. You'll also see a little chat box about the very center of this screen. You can put your questions in there. Those are being monitored by some of our CURT staff. And as you keep your microphone on mute, but your camera activated, then that gives us a sense of purpose, a sense of place, and a sense of being together. Take a deep breath and say out loud, even with your microphone muted. Get ready. Here we go. Everything's going to be all right. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Everything's going to be all right. And it really is. We're going to get through this together. We are not only surviving, we are thriving. And I'm going to tell you a little bit more about that right now. But welcome. We want you to be with us. We want you to be engaged with us. And we want you to stay, if you can, to the very end. And I'll tell you why. For the first time in a long time that I can remember, we're going to provide some good information from our award winners in workforce, in project excellence, and in safety. They're going to share with you some of the secrets, some of the things that they did that really helped achieve excellence in these areas. We've got everybody, several from different parts of the globe who are going to be with us on a recorded message, and you won't want to miss it. Our staff works very hard to make sure your investment with every minute you spend with us is meaningful, is resourceful, is provocative, and is engaging. We want you to connect with one another. We're going to tell you a little bit about what that looks like in just a moment. I first of all want to thank our sponsors. We've got the National Center for Construction Education and Research, always a faithful sponsor. We're so grateful for their generosity, and also Construct Secure. You saw some of those names in the scrolling PowerPoint that Palmer had while he played that very familiar 70s music. I saw some of us mouthing the words along to Pure Prairie League and Elton John and others. Thank you, Greg, for that. So again, our purpose today is to share experiences, perspectives, and resources one with the other. We have a couple of really dynamic speakers and panels, and then we have a plethora of award winners toward the end of the day. And if there's someone from your organization that you would like to have joined this meeting, I encourage you to send that email link that Palmer and Rana and Rob sent to you, and send it over to them. Invite them to join you because I guarantee that this time together is going to be extremely beneficial. I need to tell you a little bit about how we've done things given this the COVID-19 crisis. We've kind of taken what would normally be compact in a 3-day event in Florida or Arizona or Philadelphia or some such place where we've met on a quarterly basis. We've kind of taken all that activity and spread it out through the month. So our committee meetings are not held today. They've been held in the past month. All of them. You saw a list of those earlier in the scrolling PowerPoint. You can also find more information about those at CURT.org, or you could call Rana Dubrow, who's here on the call. And Ron, if you wouldn't mind putting your phone number in there, and maybe Rob, you do the same. These are two hardworking staff people that can answer any questions you might have about anything that you might hear or anyone you might meet. So do not underestimate the resourcefulness of both Rana and Rob. But the committees are safety and workforce, lean project delivery, offsite construction, procurement, technology, all exciting topics and something for everyone in your organization. So if you want to get engaged in those, call those folks here at the office and we'll make sure you get up to snuff about what they're working on and how you can work along with us. Next, we have a webinar tomorrow called Utilizing Procurement and Contracting, Start to Finish. There is room for this. And I got to tell you, folks, these webinars are extremely, the feedback we have is just amazing on those. And if you'd like to join us and you haven't signed up yet, there is room. They're only 99 bucks. I think they're for nearly the whole day. It's a great value. And if you join us and you don't have any value in it, you call me personally, I'll give you your money back. I feel like the mattress guy. What's his name? Mr. Pillow, Mr. Mattress or the pillow guy. But anyway, I'm serious about that. You join us, we'll give your money back if you're not satisfied with what we have to offer. That's how confident I am that you can find a value in our organizations. Coming up also virtually, and I think it was a good call we made back in August about going virtual in February, but we've got a national conference that is bar none one of the finest we've ever offered. Also, late breaking development for owner members of CURT. That national conference experience in February is free. Not only is it free to you owner members who are in good standing with CURT, it's free to anybody in your organization you'd like to sign up to attend the national conference. Best deal in the industry. So we invite you to learn more about that. I think it has a separate website, curtnc.org. And if I'm wrong on that, Palmer, just chime in and correct me. But that is coming up in February. Again, an outstanding compilation of resources, experiences, and perspectives, both yours and others. We're bringing together in a 2 or 3 day event that's sure to be one of the highlights of Q1 of 2021. Owner agility and owner opportunities, thriving in the new normal is the theme for it. We've even got the president of Google Data Analytics who's going to be with us. Google is a member. Microsoft is soon to be a member. So we're seeing an uptick and interest from the tech companies and the big data centers that they're building want your help. Let's see. I'm looking at the board right behind the screen here to see if there's anything that I've missed. I don't think there is. If you're interested in sponsoring a future event or being a sponsor at the national conference, I encourage you to call Kyle Costco or Greg Palmer. Again, all this information, the contact information can be found at curt.org, or just put a simple question in the chat box over there to the right of your screen, and Greg and Kyle, along with Rana and Rob, are marketing that stuff for us. So the schedule for today is as follows. We've got 2 really good presentations. One, the relevance of construction technology trends, chasing the what and why, what's going on in technology. That we're going to tell you about that in just a moment or two. And then we're going to take a networking break. Just a word or two about the networking break, and I'll repeat it a little bit later. The purpose of the networking break is simply to get you connected. We're going to force that in a series of breakout sessions. You won't have to press any buttons. You just stand by, and at the right time, Palmer will throw you into a networking room. There will likely be a staff person there. We got a couple of questions that you can tee up from an earlier presentation, but it's a time to get to know each other. You know, we've discovered at CURT many times that the answer to somebody's problems is about 30 feet away when you were meeting face to face. And I dare say that the answer to some of your issues, some of your challenges, some of the things you might need might be a few inches away here on this screen and with the participants today. So again, engage, connect, chat with us, ask questions at the appropriate time. Stay with us to the very end, because we promise that the awards event at the very end will be equally meaningful and resourceful as our time together right now. Our first presentation for today, I'm excited to hear, so excited to introduce to you Jay Snyder. Jay is the Technology and Innovation Practice Leader at FMI. And in just a moment, Palmer is going to cue him in and cue his presentation up, but let me tell you just a word or two about him. Although Greg, isn't this information also available in the app? Rob or Rana, the information
Yes,
on this is it's all available in the app. So I'm just going to share with you a few highlights. Jay has, as I mentioned, is in the engineering construction industry. He's been there throughout his entire career. He has a industry experience as a project executive, corporate director of planning, design and construction for healthcare systems has been in his portfolio. He's been a founder and a board member of a risk management tech startup, and he's directly led planning and design of construction projects of over 750 million, approaching $1 billion of construction development. Here's the part that I liked. Jay, we do read your bios, and here's what I'm going to share. He earned his bachelor's in construction management from SUNY at Syracuse, a master's from Emory, but he's a lieutenant colonel in the U.S. Air Force Reserve, having completed 4 combat deployments, 3 overseas humanitarian relief deployments, and is a squadron commander that is based in one of my favorite cities, if not my favorite city, Charleston, South Carolina. And Jay, for all you've done for each of us by virtue of your service to the U.S., we're so grateful, and we want you to hear that. We mean it sincerely. It sounds pious, but at this point, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to give you Jay Snyder. Jay?
Thank you, Greg. Can everyone hear me?
We are able to hear you.
Super. Well, Greg, first let me say, when Rob asked me to participate in this event, he didn't tell me I would be following you. Had I known that, I would have reconsidered, joining today.
No, you're going to do good. You're the cherry and the whipped cream. I'm the ice cream. So you just take it away, brother. We're on your team.
It sounds good. Let me go ahead and cue this presentation up here and see if you all can see it here. Hold on 1 second. We're all in this new world of doing this, right? We've been doing it for 8 months now. You think it'd be old hat, but it's not. Okay. Let me know if you can see in presentation mode my PowerPoint, folks.
Not yet. How about a little help, Greg Palmer?
Make sure that you've clicked the green button in the bottom center that says share screen.
Yes, ma'am. Let me try this one then.
Perfect, Jay. It's all yours. We can see you and the presentation.
Okay, fantastic. Up and running. Great. Thanks for your patience, everybody. And really great, again, thanks for the great introduction. It's my pleasure to be here with Kurt. Appreciate Rob and the staff for allowing me to come in here and talk and really, follow Greg in opening up the session. It's quite a pleasure. FMI and Kurt have a long-standing relationship where we've done all sorts of things together, including industry research, which is a little bit of what I'm going to talk to you about today. I'd open with a joke about the coronavirus, but I'm told that it'll take you 2 weeks to get it, so we just don't have time for that. So we'll just press on. I think in pure 2020 fashion, as we're winding down the year, it's more appropriate to focus on less on the whimsy of technology, less on the futurama of technology, maybe a little bit more introspection in reflection on how the industry is adopting technology across all stakeholders. So it's this time of year where I try to avoid talking about the glitter and instead prefer to talk a little bit more about business and its impact within each of your companies. So with that being said, what I'd like to do here is follow this outline for today. We have a study we've done. It's an open-ended study, an ongoing study, if you will, around how well companies are adopting and leveraging technology in their business. So at this stage, I want to present to you what the average technology program and capabilities look like for the typical project stakeholder in the industry, and then let's talk about what it is we're trying to achieve with a technology program in our business, and surmise why we're trying to achieve those specific items. Here's the catch here, and it's tough to do in a Zoom meeting. So you all have figured out the chat function in Zoom by now. Of course, we've had 8 months to figure that out. Please submit questions, respond to what I'm saying. I'd love to hear from you as we're going along. I'm going to pitch questions to you, and we're going to have maybe some awkward silence until I get a response, just because I want to get some engagement and make sure that y'all are paying attention. I know that the big get here is the awards ceremony, and I'm just sort of the filler, but I want to make sure that we're all getting something out of this. So with that being said, let me talk to you a little bit about the survey we did, or that we're doing, I should say. If you don't have access to the survey, if you don't remember Rob sending out the link to the CURT membership, you let me or Rob or anybody in the staff know, and we'll make sure you get the link, because we certainly want everyone to participate. And by participating, we'll make sure that you get periodic updates to that data and those trends. The survey is called an FMI Technology Self-Assessment. So we have a series of questions where we're asking companies to engage in a Qualtrics survey, answer some questions, spend 5 or 8 minutes just running through a laundry list of questions so that we can kind of assess where you are on your tech maturity journey, and then compare that among the other respondents that we have in the system. The survey in general has been fairly passive. What do I mean by that? Well, we've sent out the link to many folks through various channels. We're not actively advertising the survey. It's not a commissioned study, so there's no one entity funding the study. So it's been something that we're just sort of passively trying to generate interest in and get folks to respond to. Have about 100 respondents right now. You can see sort of the demographic of the respondents there, but pretty much every sort of stakeholder in construction delivery has participated in the survey. When we think about the survey and what it's assessing, you can see the kinds of things we're assessing in that. We're looking at leadership. We're looking at tech strategy, or a plan or a roadmap for technology in your business. We're talking about financial planning and tech budget planning around all things IT. We're looking at IT staffing, how appropriately you are manned internally for handling IT needs and IT initiatives. Talking cybersecurity, data management, training on the technology that you're rolling out to your users, and then of course how well you are capturing feedback and leveraging those technologies via adoption by the end user. So these are all the things we assess, and like I said, a 5 to 8 minute survey. So pretty proud of the vehicle. But the only thing that matters are the results, right? The insights.
Jay, can I interject a quick question, please? Is the survey still open? Is this an ongoing survey that you're welcoming additional input to?
Absolutely, yes. The survey is still open and will remain open. We have a specific link to CURT members for the survey that I believe Rob has handy. Actually, he looks like Palmer dumped it into the chat window there. So if you want to go ahead and take that survey, you can jump to that Qualtrics link that you see there in the chat window. Thanks for asking, Greg.
You bet. And we'll make sure that each participant gets these results that you're reporting on too, Jay. Thank you.
Yeah, super, super. So when we looked at this survey, this is kind of how it breaks down. And this is an eyesore, but it kind of reminded me of the Family Feud. I felt a little Steve Harvey-ish here, and it was planned to come with the full flavor and personality of Steve Harvey, but then I realized I'm not Steve Harvey, so I just can't do it. All I can do is ride his coattails here. But when we do the survey, we looked at things like these different attributes here. And I'm sort of interested in y'all's reaction. I wish we were in a room together, because I'd love to see, you know, if anyone squirms in their chair, if anyone chuckles, or if anyone says, ah, yeah, that's me, as we're going through these things. But so let's get to it and figure out what the survey says here, if you will. I'm curious, so anyone have any guesses on how well we're doing in general as an industry with technology? Does anyone think we're going in the right direction overall? Does anyone think we're fairly stagnant? Anyone feel like maybe we've regressed a little bit? Any comments from anyone in the chat window around that?
Yeah, please take a moment and activate the chat box per Jay's invitation, and let us know. Are we stagnant, trending in the right direction, where we need to be, way below? And we'll offer all those in the chat room. Go ahead, guys.
Man, I'll tell you, okay, we started off a little bit pessimistic, stagnant, slowly headed in that direction. Okay, favorable, but slower than we could. That's fair. Okay, we'll see. Moving in the right direction. Active but misdirected. Boy, that's interesting. Let's put that active but misdirected in right here on the side of my desk and come back to that later. Okay, well, let's figure out what the survey says, folks. So here we go. It's an eyesore. I'm going to break it down much simpler for you than this, but just kind of walking item by item here, if you will. When we assess the digitization of companies and whether or not they feel like they are fully digitized here, it's sort of an unfair question to ask, but we need a place to start, right? So when we asked companies if they feel like they are fully digitized, you can see that about a quarter of companies are sort of self-assessing, if you will, that they are fully digitized, meaning they're not relying on paper, okay? So that's actually pretty impressive, I think, you know, considering where we were just, let's say, 5 to 10 years ago to where we are now. But if you can see there, the folks that said that they're not fully digitized, 2%, that's also, I think, a good indicator. That means that the rest of us are somewhere in the middle, right? The rest of us are that sort of remainder, if you will. If 45% are either not digitized or feel like they're fully digitized, then I'm doing my, you know, public school math here. 55% of us think we're somewhere along the journey, but we're not quite there. And I think that's a good sign. When we talk about IT leadership on the executive team, I'm not talking about necessarily having a chief technology officer. I'm not talking about having a chief information officer necessarily. It could be a director of IT or an IT manager, but someone that has a seat at the table with the executive team. Someone that can talk close to on parity with, let's say, a C-suite professional, right? That's what we're trying to get at here. You can see that 22% of respondents say that they do have IT leadership on the executive team, whereas 45% of the industry say that they do not. So certainly some work to do there, and we'll talk about that more in this next slide. Tech steering committees, it may be the most important thing you could possibly do in a company as you're starting down this journey. It basically empowering your people in a committee fashion to help lead the company or elucidate to the company where there may be great tech opportunities for the business. Also being ambassadors within the company for any tech initiatives. You can see there that 30% of companies have a tech steering committee in place, whereas 50% of companies do not. So lots of opportunity to improve that. And then we've got 20% somewhere in the middle forming a tech committee, if you will, or have tech committees that aren't meeting regularly. So certainly, if we would have asked this question just a few years ago, I suspect that 30% would be more in a single digit, if you will. In terms of collecting tech feedback from users, whether or not companies are regularly collecting tech feedback or not collecting tech feedback at all or somewhere in the middle, this is feedback related to the effectiveness of applications, the effectiveness of IT support, in general, just overall feedback around ideas and comments for technology. You can see there that 8% of companies are regularly collecting technology feedback, whereas 22% of companies aren't collecting feedback at all. Talking about tech strategy, tech roadmap, you can see there 20% of companies are saying they have a tech strategy in place, whereas 17% of companies indicate that they've not done that effort yet. They do not have a tech strategy or a roadmap, meaning they essentially have no defined direction for technology. When we're talking about a tech assessment, that being assessing your current state of affairs with technology, your end user needs, leadership alignment on technology, we see that 16% of companies indicate that they regularly assess technology in their business, whereas 25% have not moved out of the dugout on that yet. And when we talk about budget, annual tech budget, we can see that 38% of companies do have a defined tech budget, whereas 27% don't. And we have a bunch of folks somewhere in the middle. We're going to touch on this a little bit later about annual technology budgeting and the importance of that. And we also know that metrics are important. So when we talk about IT metrics, not really a surprise here, I don't think. But we have 12% of companies saying that they have IT metrics defined and in place, and 51% of the industry saying no, they do not have any defined metrics related to IT. Talking integrated systems, that is being able to enter data in one system and have it flow across to other systems, if you will. We have 15% of companies saying their systems are always fully integrated and data is always flowing between systems, which is actually a rather high percentage, kind of surprised me from what I would have suspected. And then 55% saying sometimes the data will flow between systems, but not always, which I think is you know, probably more in line with the majority of the industry if I were to have guessed before the survey. When we talk about scalable tech, what we're talking about with scalable technology is technology that you can use whether your projects are small or large. Technologies that you can use whether you're a $100 million company or a $600 million company. 64% of companies say that they've selected technology that's scalable to their business and to projects, whereas 27% of companies say that sometimes some of their technology is scalable, but not always scalable to project size or company size. And then the cybersecurity topics. Now, I'm going to tell you right now that we're going to talk a fair bit about cybersecurity. I stayed at a Holiday Inn Express. I know enough about cybersecurity to be able to talk to you today about it. I'm not the guy to come to solve your cybersecurity problems, but we're going to talk about it today, okay? So in terms of cybersecurity assessments, understanding how vulnerable you may be to a risk or to an actor, a negative actor in the space, 54% of companies are regularly performing cybersecurity assessments, whereas 18% of the industry still has not done anything to assess their cybersecurity posture. And then on training, 35% of companies are offering cybersecurity training as a part of the regimen to employees, and 35% of the industry has not engaged in any cybersecurity training. These are a lot of numbers, and I need a sip of water. So while I'm taking a sip of water, anyone have any thoughts on this? Any surprises about these statistics?
One of the observations, Jay, that I have is that so let me find it. When you're talking about IT metrics, more people are unsure and don't have them than do have them. Yet a lot of people are spending a lot of money on these other items, but they don't know where the destination is. They're not sure when they've arrived. They don't know what success looks like. It seems to me that that's the biggest gap. That's one of my observations. By the way, if you're in the chat box and Rana and Rob, if you're monitoring that for us and see a question come up, feel free to help Jay with that by just breaking in and sharing it. Are there?
You know, Greg, you got a good point. We indicate here that only 20% of companies have a tech strategy, right? Only 22% of companies have IT leadership at the executive table. So it's really, and then 12% of companies aren't really exactly sure how to measure success, partly because maybe they haven't defined success, partly because maybe they don't really understand what tools they need to put in place or what KPIs are relevant to assessing technology success. Probably a mix of all those things. Okay, well, let's talk about how we're trending. So that is where we are. But what about trending? As we've been conducting this survey, where do things seem to be going? What direction are we headed? Okay, so with digitization, we see nothing but improvement. We see companies looking to, almost across the industry, looking to try to leverage technology and rely less on paper or more analog methods of managing projects and passing on information and collaborating. So that's good. Kind of a no-brainer, right? We know that we were in this transformation, and for the most part, companies know that if they're not on the train, they're going to be left behind. This idea of IT representation on the executive team, though, has not gained traction. We're not really any better today than we were, a year ago. So we really need to be thinking about why that might be. It could be that we only want to allow people a seat at the executive team that have a C prefix in their title. That could be a barrier. It could be that companies aren't yet ready to invest in the type of strategic leadership overseeing IT and technical initiatives that's probably worthwhile nowadays, now that we're doing more and more to try to generate data-driven decisions and data-driven insights. But we need to move off of center there. We need to really understand that when we talk about solving problems or managing projects, it's a people, process, and technology business. That's just how we get things done. And so if you only have 2 of the 3 parts of that represented at the table, you're missing an opportunity to be proactive and figuring out how technology can support those other levers that you may be pulling in the business. When we talk about tech steering committees, it's getting a little better, Greg, but it's not getting a whole lot better. And what we find there is that companies are apprehensive about starting tech steering committees because they can't really take anything off of those people's plates to do that job. So it's just putting more on their plate. So how do you ask more of people when they're already working the hardest, when they're already doing as much as they can, and now you're asking them to participate, on a committee and not pull something back off of their plate? I was in a leadership meeting with a client last week, and it was interesting. The topic of conversation was that in change management, we forget that as we're changing something, maybe we are replacing a capability with something else. Typically, we're just adding more. We're not actually replacing. We just tend to just pile on top of it. And I think tech steering committees fall in that spot. And what we need to realize with tech steering committees is, if done right, you're able to leverage the experience of your people to really understand where the opportunities are to leverage technology, but you're also able to have that cadre of people that act as your ambassadors or change management agents throughout the organization. So it's really I don't think it's a misunderstood, but it's a missed opportunity to really capitalize on building up a really robust technology program in the company with fairly little lift.
Jay, let me ask a quick question, and I know this is fresh, and you may not have had a chance to analyze it, but we're talking about IT representation on the exec team. Is that indeed the best place for an embed for the person who owns digitization and technology, or is there a better, more effective role for them in another place in the organization? Now, I don't know is a fair answer since this is really fresh material to you, but I'm curious about your opinion on it. Does it really need to be at the exec team, and if so, why?
Yeah, so it's a good question, Greg. It doesn't necessarily need to be a C-suite person at the table representing technology. It could be someone that's invited to the table incidentally as it's relevant to the conversation. So that's a great question. The other thing I'd say is really best practice isn't that this is an army of one, right? So this is some sort of a leader in the business overseeing IT, a strategic mindset for technology. That may or may not necessarily be a true IT classically trained individual. Oftentimes in companies, we see the CFO ends up representing technology in conversations. That's not ineffective, but it's not as effective as it could be, meaning obviously a CFO has some competing interests when we're talking about initiatives to move forward, the cost of initiatives, how to assess ROI, and the fact that a lot of times with technology, it's very difficult, I guess I'll say, to derive an actual dollar ROI. So that puts the CFO in a weird juxtaposition to advocate for a technology initiative. The other thing I'd say is in terms of tips for success here regarding IT staffing, we want to make sure that your IT staff isn't just a bunch of help desk folks. And we want to make sure that to the extent that you can, based on the size of the company, of course, that you have some construction technologists or a construction technologist that's really getting the temperature of the job site, the temperature of the end user, and what they may need in the field by checking in and understanding, operations and technology's relevance to different parts of the operation. So appreciate you asking. Kind of a long answer. Appreciate you asking. When it comes to tech feedback in the roadmap, really haven't seen much growth there. We want to see more deliberate programs and structure around collecting feedback. We want to see companies conducting annual user assessments. We want that information to come back to inform decisions to executive teams. As we saw on the previous slide, we're really lagging in companies creating tech strategies or tech roadmaps. So Greg, to your earlier point, they really don't know where they're going. There's an opportunity to improve that, and it doesn't need to be a heavy lift. It doesn't need to be like a business strategy. It can just be a meeting of the minds with some representation of the end users in the business to help inform maybe what the next 3 or 4 tech initiatives should be in the company. When it comes to tech budgeting, I hate to say it, but we're regressing here. We're actually downplaying the importance of tech budgeting, even as it should be even more important in the business. I don't know if you all know this or not, but if you looked at your financial statements, your top 3 expenses are probably something like people, assets, and technology. I would bet that if you calculated all of your costs on technology, all things technology, that would be in your top 3, certainly in your top 5 costs of your business. Yet we're not budgeting for it. So we handle it sort of, we pay as we go kind of a thing. That's a little bit of a product and construction of general conditions and passing some of that through to the client in contracts if you're a general contractor. But it's also a bit about not keeping good records and not having good data about past spend on technology. We need to get better about that. In fact, we're endeavoring to conduct a IT spend survey so we can help people benchmark on where they might be on the spend curve for technology. And so TBD on when we have enough responses that we can actually share that information.
Jay, one of the observation I'm making is the very next one. I think people are hesitant to spend if they don't know what they're spending for. So I think your lack of tech metrics, when decisions are being made, it's like, well, what do we get out of that? So what? And there may be a reluctance, there may be a connectivity between those two.
Yes, I think they're coupled. Absolutely. The metrics, the budgeting, the leadership. I think it's all coupled for sure. What we're going to talk about later, so I won't harp on it too much now, is the integrated technology, that being integration of data across the technology stack. Doing better, but certainly have a long way to go. I'm going to put the burden of this mostly on the technology providers to be more forward-leaning and more and create more access to their clients' data. So if I'm an owner, a general contractor, or a design firm, I should have access to the data and the systems that I'm using, and that's not always the case. I also want my technology providers to be much more forthcoming and leaning forward in terms of creating those integrations with the more common platforms that I might be using as a company. So I'm going to put a lot of that on the tech companies, but I'm also going to say that for sophisticated users in this industry, be thinking about data integration platforms or even data as a service that can help to create some connectivity across your technologies.
Jay, there's a question. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. Before we go on to scalability, there's a question coming in from Ash Schwarzkopf from Merck. How does technology for core business differ from technology for construction? Are we talking about 2 different things here? And then Randy Paulson followed up with the answer to those key survey questions may differ depending on that. Can you add a little granularity to that? Thank you, Al and Randy, by the way. Go ahead, Jay.
It's a great question. And this is where our conversation is really less focused about necessarily construction, because if you think about the applications and use in the business, the accounting system isn't a construction specific platform. Now, there are construction specific accounting platforms because of how we budget projects and align, let's say, cost codes in a project to the general ledger. But generally speaking, an accounting platform is a standard business application. So when we conduct this survey, when we run this analysis, we're not talking about only construction technologies, right? We're not talking about only, let's say, daily reports or project management software. This is a survey that's conducted with the intent of being across all technologies in the business. So when we talk about things like integration, very important that core business applications are integrated with those construction technologies almost in an omnidirectional way. So you have data flow happening both ways, or in multiple directions. So Al, it's a great question. I would say that it's important when we talk about technology as a program that we not just focus on construction technology, if that makes sense. Okay, so scalability is getting better, and I would also attribute that to the tech providers. I think that they're starting to provide solutions that make sense for a wider part of the market, which obviously makes good business sense for them, but also allows construction companies and project stakeholders to grow into their technology in a more appropriate way. And then, of course, well, as we mentioned cybersecurity, but we'll talk about cybersecurity a little bit more a little later on. So I want to talk about another part of our assessment, which is, as folks in the industry, where do we place our highest importance? Now, this wasn't a question that ranked each of these against each other, but just asked where you would hold, let's say, leadership in terms of importance. You know, low importance to highest importance. So each one's basically ranked on their own merit. Any guesses here on how we might have ranked the importance of these various attributes of a company, Greg or others?
I think for me, I would guess leadership, because if that's right and strong and passionate and advocating, then I think these other things will begin to fall behind. I see Rob Wagner with Procter & Gamble agrees with me as well. So the question, if I can reframe it for you, Jay, is for the audience, and you can use your chat box to respond, of these elements listed here, looks briefly about 8 or so. Which are the top 2 important as you would deem them to be? Just give a little chat box feedback to Jay, and give him a moment to sip some water before he carries on. So again, the chat box can be activated at the very bottom of your screen. Hit chat box. Go ahead and jot your leadership or your response in there.
Yeah, I love everyone chiming in there. I appreciate it, everybody. By the way, I don't want to hold you in suspense too long. You have an idea in your head, whether you were able to type it in or not. So just keep that in mind and hold it for a second. Okay. So when we ask this question, here's how it lined up. Now, probably easier for me to sort these from the highest rating to the lowest rating. So just hold on a second. There we go. So this is how it stacked up. And we're going to talk about the top 2 here in a second, and why that might make sense these days. But cybersecurity and data management were the most common responses with the highest importance, followed by leadership, followed by tech strategy, IT budget planning, tech training, feedback and adoption, and IT staffing. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Anyone surprised with how that played out? Well, let me offer this. Let's take cybersecurity and data management aside for a minute. Let's look at the next 2, leadership and tech strategy. It's interesting that they're coupled near each other, because really that's critical to the direction, right? We've mentioned it a couple of times now. So it's a little validating, I guess, maybe, that they're coupled together almost in terms of where they rank in importance. What's interesting here is down at the bottom. Look at down at the bottom here. We have IT staffing, feedback and adoption, tech training. Not too many companies actually placing that as the highest importance. So my question would be, how effective can your technologies be if you're not providing the training, if you're not collecting the feedback to understand which technologies are most necessary to your folks, or if you don't have the staff in place to support those technologies during and after rollout? It's just a tough thing to do, right? So keep in mind that these weren't rated against each other. I would have suspected that all of these would have been ranked pretty high, right? A survey respondent could have ranked all of these as some of the highest importance. Of course, that's not how our brain works. But it's just kind of surprising that, we think of training and feedback and staffing as a little subordinate to the other areas. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying it's something to reflect on in your own program.
Jay, so, what is the anecdotal evidence regarding cybersecurity being a major concern? How, so not being a techie, I may fumble through my words on this, but how accurate is the market's assessment that cybersecurity is a challenge? Is it a real thing? Now, I think I know what cybersecurity is. But I'm not sure I know the definition as you intended it here. Can you give a word or two about at least your anecdotal assessment among your clients on why all the hubbub over cybersecurity, and is it valid?
Yeah. Yeah. So I'll get to the why of cybersecurity in a minute, Greg, but you're right. Cybersecurity is one of the what's, right? So as we think about like what's important to us, cybersecurity and data management are the what's that I want to focus on as we continue forward. When we talk about cybersecurity, I'm talking about all things cyber threats. So we're talking about internal actors, external actors. We're talking about activities that your employees may participate in that's not malicious on their part, but was, let's say, maybe implemented by a malicious actor. So essentially, your employees do something that expose the company unintentionally. You know, all these things around cybersecurity. And one thing I want to point out to everyone on this webinar is there's this myth that construction's not really going to be a target of cybersecurity because we don't have any important data. We don't have any major trade secrets. Well, realize that that's not the point here. So those cyber criminals that are actively engaged in this type of activity aren't interested in stealing your trade secrets. They're not interested in violating your intellectual property rights. What they're interested in doing is disrupting your business. That's all they want to do, so that they can then get paid to allow you to continue on with your business, whether it's implanted ransomware or it's some sort of phishing scheme or malware that's installed because someone clicked on an attachment in an email they shouldn't have. They're trying to lock down your system so that they can get you to pay to release that information back. Now, keep in mind that it wasn't too long ago when the whole ransomware thing was kind of a new tactic where federal agencies had told clients of mine, we just recommend you pay the ransom to get access back to your data. That was the answer. And there was an interview done with a past cyber criminal where he acknowledged that back in the day, there was almost like an honor among thieves, if you will, that if someone was hit with ransomware and you paid the ransom, you wouldn't get hit again. That's not the case anymore, at least, and I'm not sure how long that was the case, but it's certainly not the case today. So keep in mind that the point here is to disrupt your business. The point here isn't to really try to obtain a trade secret, okay? So that's what we're talking about with cybersecurity. Okay, let's see, I just want to make sure I check this chat real quick. Okay, talking about data workflows. We're gonna get the data in a second. So let's talk about cybersecurity and data management as the what that we're after. This is the most common thing that we have clients talking to us about these days, right? Is I've got these applications. I'm not really interested in adding more applications. I think I've got enough applications, you know, but I can't seem to figure out where my data is or what to do with it. You know, I'm hearing that data is the new oil, but that doesn't mean anything to me, kinds of things, right? And then we're also, of course, hearing the troubles today with cybersecurity, which is a real thing. So now that we know the what, let's talk a little bit about the why. So why is cybersecurity on our minds? We talked about it a little bit, but let's dig into it a little bit more. Well, first of all, it's outside of our area of expertise. It's not within our domain. We have, as builders, okay, as engineers, we have no knowledge of this space. We're not even quite sure where to start. In fact, some companies don't even realize that there are entire consulting firms that can come in and help with not only assessing your cybersecurity vulnerabilities, but then mitigating those and putting you on monitoring of your platform to actively defend you against cyber threats. So it's just foreign to us, quite frankly. And right now, construction is getting hit harder than ever. I would love to see in the chat as I'm talking, just put in the chat, you know, how many companies that you've heard of in the last, let's say, 2 months that have been hit with some sort of cyber attack. Just throw it in the chat while I'm talking here. I would imagine that if everyone did that, we've all of a sudden have this thing just scrolling constantly with people saying, yeah, 2 last week, 4 last month, whatever. I'll tell you that on average, I'm hearing 2 to 3 companies that I know that are FMI past or present clients that are reaching out saying, we just got hit with a cyber attack. Now, maybe they had mechanisms in place to mitigate it, maybe not, but it's a pretty frequent occurrence. Sarah's saying that she's heard of 2 companies here frequently, Herb, two that he knows of. So it's becoming a regular occurrence. So why are we target? Because we don't have proper defenses. It's outside of our area of expertise. We don't even know how to prepare for it. Well, essentially, we're like shooting fish in a barrel, right? We're easy targets.
Jay, I think one of the things, Jay, I think one of the observations, you know, I thought they were always after data, private information. I didn't realize that they were just kidnapping us and holding us for ransom, or holding our company's data for ransom. And the Fed's response is pay the ransom. That to me is astonishing, and that's a new development. I always thought they were after the stuff, not after the concept of kidnapping and holding you for ransom. Crazy.
Right. Absolutely true. Now, the Feds these days, from what we hear from our clients, is not to pay the ransom, is to call them up there and let them do the forensics and, you know, try to catch the bad guy, because this is becoming a very big problem, specifically in construction. The other thing to keep in mind too is while it is true that they're just trying to disrupt your business, keep in mind that even if you think, you know what, we're pretty analog, even if they planted something, we could continue on, it's not a problem. That's true, but keep in mind that depending on how you work with your clients, you could be a gateway to your client's system. So if you're not protecting your systems, you might be providing an avenue for a bad actor to get into your client's system. And nobody wants that on their, on their shoulders. Certainly no one wants that reputational risk or that financial risk, which leads me to my other point here of why we're so concerned about cybersecurity. And that is, when you're hit with a cyber attack and you're unprepared, you've not done anything to try to mitigate the damage, we're talking about costing hundreds of thousands of dollars. In one instance, I know a client that spent over $1 million recovering from the damage. And sometimes that's covered by your insurance policy and sometimes not. So one thing I'd say is make sure you go back and read your cybersecurity policy if you have one. Make sure that it doesn't include things such as acts of war, because state actors come from one of those countries that are, let's say, a U.S. identified state sponsor of terrorism. We've seen insurance companies deny claims because it was considered an act of war. So be careful of that as well. Essentially, talk to your insurance provider to make sure that you're covered there as well. But we lack financial resilience in this business, generally speaking. We don't have a couple of $1 million laying around between the couch cushions to handle something like this, right? And to wrap this piece up, our clients have zero tolerance for this, for us passing that risk on to them. If you want to lose a client in a heartbeat, whether you expose them or not, make the news for having a breach, right? It's just not a risk that they're willing to bear, no matter how deep and nice, how deep the relationship is or nice of a person you may be to their staff. It's just not an acceptable risk for them to take on. Okay. So when we talk about data management, why is data management and data in general so important to us? Well, like I mentioned before, and my technology provider friends aren't going to want to hear this, and I'm sorry, there's always room to improve applications and replace applications, but generally speaking, contractors are starting to get to the point where, and I am talking about contractors specifically, contractors are starting to get to the point here where they have all of the capabilities they need. Most of the categories or types of technologies that they would deploy in their business or on a project site are in place, absent things like wearable tech and robotics, which are still in their infancy. But other types of technology are probably onboarded. So they've invested in these applications and they want more out of them. And that goes to my second point here, which is think about why someone onboards technology in their business. You're onboarding technology because you want to organize or standardize a workflow. You want some consistency in a workflow or a process. Or you're trying to capture data and get insights from that information. So the first one kind of comes with an implementation of a solution. As long as you get wide adoption, you're going to be able to organize that workflow. You're going to be able to standardize those processes as much as you want to with the help of the technology itself. That second piece, though, getting the insights from your technology, we're still not there yet. For many reasons I've already mentioned, and some of those other reasons include things like limited dashboards within applications, right? We can do better there as well. But we want more from our systems. We're ready to get the data insights, but we still don't quite know exactly how to get it unless we're one of the more sophisticated companies in the industry that maybe has data analysts and data stewards and database administrators and have created a data lake or a data warehouse, some sort of a data store. But that's not the majority of the industry. The majority of the industry uses their applications, the data is held in those applications, and we're ready to get that data to us so that we can actually compare data across systems, so that we can do complex analysis. So I just don't want to know how many days it takes on average for an RFI to process. Maybe I want to know how long does it take to process an RFI, and of those RFIs that take the longest to process, maybe I want to know what types of projects are associated with those long RFI lead times, or what other project stakeholders tend to be associated with those projects with long RFI lead times. And that type of data has to be found in separate systems, typically with a contractor, and yet we're not there to be able to extract those and really do a proper analysis to really resolve the issue or improve ourselves. And we're there. I know that even my less sophisticated clients are ready to start getting those data insights from their systems. So this isn't just a tech provider problem. This is a tech user issue as well. It means investing in the staff or in outside resources to be able to manage that data, to be able to extract that data, translate that data as needed, load that data into data stores. It means investing in time or resources to build the appropriate visualizations for that data so that you can really reap the rewards of those applications. Certainly, you get a return on investment from organizing and standardizing workflow. Absolutely. I'm not going to take that away from the benefit of technology. But really, where the pay dirt is for you as a tech buyer or a tech user is in leveraging that data across systems for really impactful insights so that you can better manage projects in your business. So that's why it's one of the other what's that we see out there. Comments, questions, things on your mind?
And by the way, gang, when Jay asks a question, just feel free at this point to kind of unmute your, we've got about 12 minutes left. Just feel free to unmute your microphone and ask away. As you know, the Zoom capability will highlight you, and we will not consider it rude. So if you have a question or a comment, feel free to chime in as Jay tees up this next slide for us.
So remember, we're talking about right now the biggest what's that the industry wants in technology is they want to address the cybersecurity worries, and they want to do more with data, right? And then think back to this slide, which was the trends slide of really where we've come from and where we're headed based on the survey. What I've done here in red is I've highlighted the areas of this trend that may be holding us back from addressing our cybersecurity worries or missing the mark and leveraging data, if you will, right? Think about this idea of not having any representation on the leadership team. So how does the company know how to prioritize different initiatives, different applications, or even different resources available to them to solve these two problems, right? To get after these two what's, if you will. If you look at the tech strategy, tech roadmap, the lack of tech budgeting, the lack of tech metrics, good grief, and the lack of integrated technology or integrated data across all of our applications, these are the things that are holding you up from achieving the what, okay? I would submit to you that if we could put some horsepower around solving these items that are circled in red, that you would be able to achieve the type of performance that you would want to in terms of data management and data insights and data-driven decisions in your business. And you could probably sleep better at night knowing that your systems have a robust cybersecurity mitigation plan in place because you have the proper leadership representing it in the conversations. In the C-suite, you have the proper metrics in place to understand when your systems may be underperforming from a defensive standpoint, and you have resources in place internally or externally to properly manage and mitigate and monitor those threats. So I'm not saying that we can't get there, because we can, folks. I've seen a lot of great and rapid change in the world of construction technology, or even the way that contractors, design firms, and owners are adopting technology to better manage project outcomes, to build predictability in the projects, and to be more aware of how their businesses are operating as well. We've come a really, really long way in a fairly short period of time. It might have, in some people's minds, it might have taken us a while to get the momentum going for the transformation. But I'll tell you, at FMI, I started the technology and innovation practice at FMI just 3.5 short years ago. I was in the strategy practice before that. FMI saw that technology is going to be a bigger part of the conversation with our clients, so we started the technology and innovation practice. I was, flattered with the opportunity to lead it and kick it off. And just in those 3 years, folks, I'll tell you that the conversations I'm having with clients, the same clients that I talked to 3 years ago to the same clients I'm talking to today, it's a night and day difference. We have developed the acumen at a rapid pace. While we may not exactly know what to do to solve a particular problem, we're very good about articulating the result that we want to get out of a particular situation regarding technology. And that's huge. Before, it was very difficult for us to thread together an idea or a concept of what we want to achieve with technology, and that's less the case today. So I mean, I guess I'm trying to say here is good on us, but we've got some work to do. As you can see in this slide here, we've definitely got some work to do, and we need to not keep our eye off the ball. You know, these items that are red, hey, sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves of where we're truly at in our evolution and where we need to apply some more effort and horsepower. And I submit to you that if you can focus on these areas circled in red here, that you'll be able to move the needle on these two things pretty significantly. Any questions?
So Jay, actually, on that, I think first, yeah, I echo everything you just said. You have great points. And actually, I realize you're a co-author on the FMI report I was going to bring up, the Trust in Construction one that you guys did with Autodesk, that I think actually kind of hits a little bit on Al's point of kind of the core business, your internal operations at the company level versus your kind of external project level interoperability and those integrations. And the trust factor is huge in kind of how you can set those things up. And that, yes, I would agree, technology has lacked to date, and there still are some that are resistant, but I think for the most part, they're now in tune with, we know what we need to do, but it's only as good as the requirements that are set up, and really understanding what is my core business integrated technology stack and how internally, and how is that different from my external project level stack. And I think the solution that we're coming to with a lot of owners, especially that have very strict IT requirements, that everything has to be on-prem, is why do you have to do your project management work inside your own system? Just go to their system and make sure you're getting your data back. And it's a win-win. Yeah. I go, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. And the more we get people to kind of think differently about how data can exchange with APIs and with other things, but still maintain these legacy security requirements, because they're not going to go away. But it becomes another fun puzzle for all of us engineers to solve, right?
Absolutely. And there's no end game here per se, right? It's just
infinite game, right?
Better.
Simon Sinek.
Yeah, it sure is. And I appreciate your words there. I mean, they're very thoughtful. But you're right. I think the next phase for us as an industry is really to put some cycles behind how do we create true open data platforms, and where that needs to be anonymized, allowed to be anonymized. If that means that we're using some sort of blockchain technology, fine, but I don't care if people know that it's blockchain, just like I don't care if people know how to spell AI in their technology, right? It's all about the results and what it's producing for you. So I think everyone is aligned with where we need to get to. The hardest part is just putting in the work.
Well, along those lines, this is Al. The thing that gets me about this is that we as an owner, would like, we do want to keep our data secure in what we need to do. And because of all of that, I mean, Merck is one of the companies that has been in the last 5 to 7 years attacked and had significant impact to us. But that increased our cybersecurity. It also made it more difficult for our contractors to work within our systems and put a lot of those things. So the issue becomes, we got to get our partners to have equal levels of playing fields. And right now, not every partner is at the same level. And so in order for us to get consistency, we have to manage it. That creates a lot of that problem in doing that.
It's a really good point, Al. We need to get to a point where we actually have performance standards in place for the use of technology in our projects. I mean, it's a really, really good point. We're not there yet, probably for a multitude of reasons. I imagine a lot of that has to do with, and it's maybe not relevant to CURT membership, so I'll be careful there, but it probably has to do with the fact that many times project owners are reluctant to reduce the amount of competition on a project. So the more requirements you put out there around performance, the smaller your competitive group, your group is that you compete against, and that can be an inhibitor sometimes to doing the right thing in terms of contract language and performance standards. So I would suspect that has something to do with it. I think that on contracts, we need to be including data sharing agreements in contracts between all stakeholders. It doesn't exist right now. I'll tell you that if FMI is going to do consulting work with, let's say, Capgemini, one of my old stomping grounds, you can bet that probably one of the biggest clauses in that contract is going to be the data sharing agreement and data ownership, right? So there's things like that we need to consider as well. And so these things, when we talk about these things from a performance standpoint across project teams, you start to see how actually that starts to address a cybersecurity issue and a data access issue. So we can kind of solve multiple things here at the same time.
Jay, there's something that occurs to me as well, and that is these issues that you brought up, the data sharing agreements, the metrics, the need for metrics, etc. This could you could probably, and let me talk it out. It seems to me you could probably pre-qualify contractors similar to the way we do on safety. If you're going to share data, then you've got to make sure. I just put a quarter in Nathan's machine. I see up there. He was celebrating something I said. But
Yes.
it seems to me we could use this as a pre-qualifier, maybe not as a determinative, but certainly for points. And if we are going to do data sharing, I think one needs to make sure the other stakeholders in the agreement are equally protected from possible attack or compromise of what it is we're sharing. I think that's the biggest reason that owners, and I can't imagine Merck or J&J or Procter & Gamble even daring to share data with a contractor that could be compromised because of that contractor's lack of cybersecurity or strategy or whatever pre-qualifier that might be. So I see a risk management issue here. I see a where do I get started issue here. I see a contractual language issue here, and I think Al hit it. There's just so many competing stakeholders. I will remind the group that's listening, we have a technology committee, and in fact, I think that's part of the presentation tomorrow, or did I miss?
We had it last week.
Tomorrow. You had it last week.
Yeah,
that's right.
We moved it to last week because Autodesk University is this week.
Yes. But if you'd like to get involved, let Rana or Rob know. Also, the report that Nathan referenced about trust in construction, Rob Fisher from our office put a link to that in the chat box there, so you can access that. Again, we're about providing resources, experiences, and perspectives, and I think that's what you're seeing happen for us right here. Back to you, Jay.
Well, I was going to say, if you want to know how true these insights are, I'll say this to you. Here I am at FMI. I don't offer cybersecurity consulting, and we do not do data management. We don't do database administration or any of those things. So this is probably the most purest form of a survey and insights that I could provide you, because I promise you there is no underlying give FMI a call here, right? We don't do those two things. But if you just want to chat about tech in general, I'm happy to chat about tech. One other thing I'll say is, Greg, you bring up a great point about being a part of the pre-qual. We have safety in the pre-qual, financials in the pre-qual, bonding in the pre-qual. We've got business structure sometimes in the pre-qual and references, but we don't have the solvency of their tech stack in some way, right? We don't have a way to assess the vulnerabilities associated with the technologies that we would come into contact with as a project owner. And I'm speaking as one, formally, and I'm all about pre-qual, which is another conversation altogether. But check this out. Rob and I were talking about this, and you may see something coming down the pipe where you also see a standard created for technologies to meet. So instead of putting the onus on the contractor to make sure that the technologies they use are secure, what if there was a standard that could be met, a minimum standard that could be met for construction technologies? Consider that construction technology is not really a regulated part of our business, and I'm not, I'm not trying to push regulation here, but if there was a gold standard, not even a gold standard, a silver standard, a minimum requirement to ensure that a technology was meeting some level of quality, both from a cybersecurity standpoint, a business standpoint, a data access standpoint, would be really helpful to, I think, all stakeholders in the industry. If you want to talk more about that, hit me up afterwards, or hit Rob up, because he and I have been communicating about it.
Me.
You
Yeah,
sound like
definitely.
the neglected middle child, Nathan.
Oh man, no, I'm just I've been the young millennial BIM guy that's been thinking all this stuff, but can never get high enough to talk to the folks that can actually do that. I mean,
It'll happen.
me,
You
to
be
hear
patient.
this group talking about this stuff, I am giddy right now.
I can tell. You just be patient. Your day's coming.
I've been learning patience. I've been learning slowly.
It's okay. Quite all right. Jay, how about some closing remarks?
Yeah, listen, Greg, we've went through a lot today. And for those folks that aren't tech savvy, these conversations can be a little mind numbing. I totally get that. But I appreciate you hanging with me. I hope that you got something out of it, maybe armed you with some questions, whether they're high level or detailed, to ask your teams, to ask your contractors, to ask your project stakeholders. Just a little bit, if I added a little bit more maturity to your repertoire and your acumen, mission accomplished. I'm proud and excited to be a part of the transformation. As it says here, we've got a long way to go. It's been an exciting ride. Greg, I want to thank you. I want to thank the CURT staff for allowing me this hour to spend with the membership. It's been great. And thank you all so much for your interaction in the chat and coming off of mute. I appreciate it.
Jay, thank you so much. And by the way, this presentation is available upon request to CURT owners. Just see Rana or Rob to get your copy of this or the PowerPoint slide deck. As always, any contact information, we guard your contact information viciously. It's not sold, it's not compromised. We guard your contact information, but within CURT, we are very liberal with sharing. So if you need to contact one to the other, or you'd like some additional info or whatnot, please see Rana or Rob. Also, please note that Rob sent a link to all of you on the piece that was referenced earlier, the Jay helped author, Trust in Construction. If you look over in the chat box, you can get it there. Okay, welcome back. It is almost 2 o'clock. And how's it feel getting booted from your conversations? I don't know about you folks, but we simply weren't done yet. And I know if Joe Gianfrido was in one of those breakouts, his group for sure wasn't done yet. Joe, good to see you. But we welcome you back. And I want to tee up a second presentation that's closely related to Jay's. And by the way, if you want a copy of this and you're an owner member of CURT, you can have a recording copy of this to send it out to your organizations. You can also have a copy of the PowerPoints. So just make those requests to Rana and Rob. I trust all the groups are back. So let me share with you special presentation number 2. And then what we're going to do about 3 o'clock in about an hour, we're going to take a bio break. So we won't be going into breakouts. Take a bio break for about 10 or 12 minutes and then come back and begin our award presentation. Now, let me tell you before we get started, the awards presentations are more than just names and awards. We've asked, I think, all of our award recipients to share with us a little bit about what they did to achieve that kind of award-winning status, whether it was workforce or safety or project excellence. And we have comments from all over the world, and you will not want to miss those. So if you can stay with us, it'll be about 5:30-ish Eastern time, maybe a little late, we get it. But there's some good stuff there. Also be advised that there's more things that'll be coming out in CURT in 2021 that is designed to give you opportunity to almost have a Kurt Anywhere experience. There's more on that later. We're talking aggressively about an alliance with CII and how we can integrate some of their research to our offerings and productization of what they're doing. More to come on that. And then the big news is, if you are an owner member of Kurt, you've got your membership fees paid up, or we have reasonable assurance that you do, you can attend the national conference absolutely free of charge, and anybody on your team, anybody in your company can attend absolutely free of charge. This is to the owner members. You know, some people have 8 or 10 people attend these. In the past, last year, that would be a $15,000 value. Just terrific. And this next year's conference is no less chock full of value than the ones in previous years. So you'll hear more about that and see more about that literally this week, but be mindful of that as we move along. I want to introduce the next topic. It's called technology and construction, the continuing transformative relationship. We could have slapped 30 years ago, safety and construction, the continuing transformative relationship, workforce and construction, pre-modularization and construction, the continuing transformative relationship. And as Jay said, the vast majority of number of people who were responding to his survey did not have metrics, did not have, they just didn't have a rhythm of how to unfold this. Some are ahead of others. And of course, there's always those who lag. But we want to share with you this afternoon for the next several minutes a team that Rodney Long, one of the long-time and well-regarded members of the Construction Users Roundtable, has put together. He's going to introduce his people. Let me tell you just a little bit about Rodney. Rodney began his career at Duke Energy in 1986 at the Bad Creek project when it was under construction. He's worked with materials areas. He's had nuclear and fossil generation sourcing experience. And for the last number of years, he's been in this whole procurement area, sourcing for Duke Energy strategic products or project supply chain. He's a terrific contributor to Kurt, and he's got a group that he's put together with for his presentation. Rodney Long, thanks for joining us. Thanks for your good work to improve the industry and improve Duke. It's all yours, my friend.
Thank you, Greg. So good afternoon. It's my pleasure to moderate this panel discussion on technology and construction, the continuing transformative relationship. There should be a poll coming up on your screen for you to respond to. And so you people in the audience get the chance to kind of direct the questions that are asked and in what order they are asked. So while you're responding to that, I will introduce our panelists. First, we have Chandler Brooks, who is head of industry partnerships and alliances with Procore Technologies. John Hudson, who is vice president of North American Utilities with Power Advocate. And Jackie Benigni, who is director of customer adoption for SAP Ariba. So I appreciate those folks joining us for the panel today. And it looks like the poll that you're responding to, it looks like efficiency gains is kind of jumping into the lead by a pretty good margin, much more of a margin than the last election we watched the results for. So I'm going to pose this first question, start with Jackie, and ask, what efficiency gains do owners and contractors obtain by utilizing technology and project documentation, including the procurement documentation?
Hi, Rodney. Hi, everyone. Good afternoon, Jackie Benigni. I think we need to be able to differentiate, right, between efficiency and speed. A broken process in a new technology is just a really expensive broken process. So when we think about efficiencies and efficiency gains that we gain from technology, it has to be about the holistic approach, right, from the information that we're able to get. So it's not only the fact that I can link my project, right? And it's, oh, based on the theory, my project is going good, right? I go down the line and I say, check, 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 this is good. But it's also about being able to link the theory, right, from a project management perspective to the money that's actually going out the door, to the spend that's actually going out the door. So we really need to be able to come back and say, this is one and the same, right? Instead of looking at it and working at it from a silo perspective. We have owners and contractors that think about speed as a way of efficiency. I'm not saying that they're synonymous of each other, right? But we really have to think about that true efficiency comes from a holistic approach of project management, right? The theory, the spend, right? Making sure that everything, all of our I's are dotted and our T's are crossed. And you're able to also do that by having transparency, right? And accountability. So efficiency gains is really understanding where items and things are in the process. You know, I think one of the things that came out in the poll was, hey, post-COVID, before we used to get up, right, and walk to somebody's desk and find out what's going on. Now, that person might be taking care of their kid or have something that's going on at home. You need to be able to depend on technology to get the information that you need real time, right? And have that transparency and understand accountability. So I think that that is an efficiency gain that owners and contractors can actually expect with the use of technology.
Jackie,
Okay.
can I ask a question real quick, Rodney?
Yes,
When Jackie, when you Jacqueline, when you talk about technology, it's a general concept. Do you have some specific recommendations for low-hanging fruit? What technology is most readily available, most widely used, and probably most effective in accomplishing what you say there?
So Greg, right there, I'm biased, right? In the sense that I work for SAP Ariba. So yes, if you want to and I implemented, right? So I was a customer and I did this and I implemented spend management across 42 countries simultaneously. And I will tell you, right, the use of SAP Ariba allows you to do that because it was really about being able to understand where that low hanging fruit is and get the data behind it, right? We talk a big game, right? Having been in the space, we talk a lot about sourcing and we talk about savings and savings realization. But when we're asked the question to say, well, it's low hanging fruit, what is it? And what's the maturity level that that spend should pass, right? Just because you have it in a controlled manner doesn't mean that that's the right control and that it should stay there, right? So from SAP Ariba's perspective, we do focus on intelligent spend management. And it is a technology that enables you to do that, right? So money going out the door and matching it to a theory. Did that answer your question, Greg?
Yes, thanks very much.
You got it.
okay. So let me go to John Hudson now and see if John's got anything he'd like to add to this topic.
Hi, Rodney. Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
All right. I would just add a couple comments to Jackie's comments, and I think we think of process efficiency or efficiencies in sort of three groups or three buckets. So process efficiency, faster sourcing cycle times, being able to reduce the amount of work that it takes to accomplish a process. The second would be scalability gains. For example, the ability to use technology to invite more bidders, to increase competition with really no incremental administrative or evaluation burden. More competition generally leads to larger savings. And then I would also say after the fact administrative burden reduction. So a lower level of effort for audits, significantly easier to mine data from past procurements. So things of that nature.
Okay, thank you, John. Since so many people were interested in efficiency gains, I'm going to ask Chandler a question along those same lines, but a little bit different question. So Chandler, I as an owner might have the need to hand off documentation to, for instance, a regulatory agency. So what's available that gives me a way to do that and be efficient and know that my information is being held securely?
Thanks for the question. It's a great question. Part of part of why there's probably been difficulty in the past, and I'll just share that first and then go into what's available now and why it's working better. So in the past, being able to track everything that you would ultimately hand off to a governing body or to maybe a compliance regulatory body, whatever that might be, is the need to have to do your job, do the work that you would normally do, and then above and beyond that, figure out how you are going to document it in a easy to hand off way. A lot of the software now has essentially merged those two together to say that the job that you do is also tracking for you. And so any software that you are evaluating or thinking about looking at has to be able to capture everything, but it has to be done from a perspective of how you do your work normally. So best way to think about that is, so if I can capture everything, that means that every minute of every detail that you do any work on is sitting on some kind of platform. And if that tool then has the opportunity to either download information to do a handoff in, say, a zip file or an email, great. But the better idea is that this information within that platform can transfer to another entity that needs to see it within that same platform. So they get all the same level of visibility that Jackie was talking about earlier, and transparency, to know that this is the same thing you're seeing is the same thing that they're seeing. So one of the ways to keep it secure is obviously making sure that the platform has cloud level technology that is employing the latest and greatest in encryption, and obviously avoiding any kind of hacking faults that may occur.
Okay, thank you, Chandler. So I think this is kind of keeping in the same vein. So generally in CURT meetings, there are a number of folks who we see as kind of that next generation, kind of the up and coming workforce. So what might the three of you provide as advice to someone who is an emerging leader on how best to utilize technology to help further their career? And Chandler, if you want to, I'll let you take that one first.
I appreciate that. Yeah. One, think of it as it's a tool. Just like if you've had a long and prosperous career, you know, new things come along, you get that shiny object syndrome, and you think it's the end all be all solution to everything. And it's not. Technology is just another tool. Now, it's an advanced tool, but you have to understand the best way to use that. So if you're an emerging leader, leverage that. You know, leverage the fact that this tool can bridge gaps in your experience and understanding that your counterparts may have over you just by years of being in the industry. Use it as a means of communication. You know, for the first time, you have literally 5 to 10 ways to send the same kind of conversation through digital means. Well, leverage that to your ability. Be mindful of the different ways you can communicate. And then if you are a little bit newer in your career, or if you're just trying to, again, move up, build the credibility that you have with your peers, in the sense that you're listening more than you're talking. And you're able to use technology as a means of capturing what you're being told, capturing what you're being expressed, and using that in every aspect, and kind of demonstrating that this isn't just the new shiny thing that's going to go away and we'll go back to the old thing. Show that this is an integral part of your success as an emerging leader. Make it a part of your toolkit. As I said in the beginning, it is a tool. So figure out how to use it to the best of your ability.
Okay. John, would you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I would, Rodney. I would say I would have two recommendations for an emerging leader with how best to utilize technology in their career. The first I would say is to look beyond process efficiency and embrace the use of data and analytics to derive insights and decision support. The digitizing of everything today, combined with the artificial intelligence that's available and is emerging, allows for data to be leveraged in ways that were just simply not possible even a few years ago. So we've seen construction owners that we work with who approach decisions creatively and approach the use of data creatively from a data-driven perspective, improve the quality of their business decisions that they make enormously. So one recommendation I would say is embrace data and analytics and an analytical way of thinking. The second thing I would say is be mindful of change management within your organization. Most of the customers that we work with who successfully leverage technology and obtain the best return on their technology investments are those who paid attention to and planned for the organizational change that occurs when you implement a new technology. And I think specifically there's two things under that. One is leaders need to ensure that technology users understand the business goals of the technology that they're investing in. Sometimes it's easy for users, the folks who are actually expected to use the technology, to lose sight of the high level value that organizations expect to obtain, and then get the users involved up front if possible. Get user input at the minimum, make sure they understand this is coming. So embrace technology and don't forget about change management.
Okay, thank you. Jackie, I want to give you a chance to weigh in as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Rodney. I agree with both Chandler and John, right? I think one of the, there was a quote that I always like to follow, right? When I was thinking about technology and implementing technology, and it's one with Henry Ford. He said, if I asked my customers what they want, they would have asked for a faster horse, right? And if you had to do a sanity check for yourself as an emerging leader, right? That's one thing you have to keep in mind, right? If you continue to ask, you're going to get feedback, but they're also going to want a faster horse. So to Chandler's point, it is just a tool, right? That tool fosters a multi-directional career progression. So it doesn't mean that you're going to go step 1, 2, and 3, right? It actually goes from being just a ladder to becoming a jungle gym, right? Because you are able to expand and understand what else is out there. And also, how do these different technologies compare to each other? How do they contrast? And how do they complement each other as you're ultimately going through that? So you have to keep that open-mindedness and always forget, right? People are going to ask you for that faster horse. But to John's point, the data, the insights, that's what's going to help you make that right decision. Also, focus on the big picture, but be able to. Sometimes we see leaders that are so immersed in the technology that they just start talking very techy. They start using all these big words. They make it really hard for people to understand. And the truth of the matter is that you could be the best leader in the world, but what really makes you a leader and have people is that you have a following behind you that's actually going to support your decisions, right? And they're going to back you up and they're going to have your back. And if it sounds so strategic and so large and so massive, right, they're not going to get it and they're going to be too ashamed to be able to say it. So I think being able to communicate and articulate clearly, to have a following, to really lead people no matter where you are is important. Take that feedback and that insight, always thinking that they'll want to faster horse, and be able to find the connections on the points across all the tools. And remember, right, it is multi-directional progression. The technology and what you're able to learn is not necessarily going to take you up, 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 up. It's just going to make it a jungle gym. And you have to be able to accept that and understand that that's going to be key.
Very good. Thank you.
Hey, Rodney, can I add something else that I'm hearing is very important vis-a-vis this whole subject? And that is that what is the business case? I think a lot of times we're interested in a successful project under budget, good safety performance, coming in at or under cost, reasonable degree of productivity, and we call that success. But upstairs, they're saying, what is the value of this project to our business? And it's been my experience that upstairs will never talk our language. We've got to talk theirs. And if we're going to get support for the use of these tools in our projects, we've got to understand the business case for the project to begin with and how the utilization of technology provides greater ROI to the business. I don't think I'm too far off. I'd be interested in others' comments on that. I saw Chandler saying amen down there with his head. Any other thoughts on that? Is learning the business case, articulating the need and the use of it, the business case, not merely in the project case. Thoughts?
Chandler, do you want to
Yeah.
take that?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you said that. And I think we all find ourselves in the weeds a little bit, looking at the tools and really treating them to say, hey, this makes my job easier, but who's paying for it? It is that upper office or the higher office, if you will. I will say that from my personal experience, just because I had to do this a lot with technology before I came over to Procore, and actually do it a lot now at Procore still, we were able to utilize the very technology that gave us these insights into building better projects, and started to translate that into one of the most common metrics that we wanted to speak to, which was the profit. You know, how are we able to forecast better? Are we able to say that I am able to do the same job that we were able to charge this much for, but the cost to do it was less? Your ROI increased. I was able to do 2 times what I was able to do last time. Therefore, I increased my volume of work that I was able to perform. I'm able to take on 2 projects where I could only take on 1 in the same time frame. Now I'm increasing my quantity. And then also, again, this is all tying to the dollars. You're saying if the business grows as a result of this acquisition of software or use of software, it makes it a really easy conversation. Then it's a question of all the subsequent things. How do we make sure adoption is correct? How do we make sure people actually input data? One of the most fun things to do is to be able to say, wouldn't you like to know where you are in real time at all times with your finances? And you not have to go chase people down to give you that information. That's one of the best parts about technology, is that everybody's having as a way of doing their job, implementing and using that software to do their job. So therefore the data is captured, information gets rolled up in real time. So there's just a few examples of how you might build a business case using that tech, but I'm sure there's more.
Okay, Jackie or John, anything to add?
Sure. Yeah. I want to expand on what Chandler said. I mean, when you tie technology to a larger business case, one of the first things you have to do, Greg, is understand what is your objective for the technology to begin with. And I think many owners that we work with actually struggle with identifying the benefit and the objective of the technology to begin with. So making sure that you know what you want to accomplish with the technology, and then taking the time to measure a baseline of your current state, so that then you can measure the improvement. And then, being able to tie that to whatever your business objective is. Of course, everything comes down to dollars, right? Process efficiency is a good example of where that can be kind of tough to measure, right? That can be a little bit of a soft benefit unless you take the time up front to measure a baseline, whether it be, a procurement cycle time or, a sales cycle time, whatever it is again, the goal for the objective for the investment, the technology investment is critical. And understanding and defining what that objective is key to tying back your technology dollars to your business case.
Thank you very much. Go ahead, Jackie.
Yeah, and I think I agree with Chandler and John, right? It's about, you bought this for a reason, right? Or you're getting ready to do this for a reason. What is that reason, right? Why did you buy it in the first place? And sometimes, right, Chandler said it great, we are so involved in getting into the weeds that we forget that, right? And defining it early, right? Was it compliance? Was it process improvement? Was it revenue? What was the reason, right, that you decided to move forward with this type of technology? And set your baseline in the beginning. And at that point in time, course correct, right? And start tracking against it. Everyone, whenever they start a new project, oh, it's so exciting. They get the project started, right? They start getting and doing all the work, but they don't take the time to stop and say, am I implementing the tool in a way that's actually going to help me get that process efficiency? And process efficiency might be speed, or process efficiency might be reduction, right? What is the whole point and why you decided to do this? And also align in those definitions, right? Sometimes I work with customers all the time, and the point is, I will ask sometimes 6 people the same question, and they'll give me 8 different answers as to why they went live, right? And they have a completely different definition of, let's say, what does compliance mean to them. So you have to baseline, you have to make sure that you've normalized to be able to meet that business case and stop, right? Do a sanity check and be able to do that, because if you cannot answer why you bought this in the first place and you can't track it, then you're going to be in big trouble 6 months, 7 months down the line when there are issues, because there's always issues, right? And then somebody starts questioning the value. If you didn't set that what the value was from the beginning, you're already in trouble halfway through this.
Rodney, if I can interrupt for a minute here.
Sure.
We have several comments from Nathan Wood that's in our chat box, and I just want our panelists to hear these. Nathan states, don't teach them your language, learn their language, AKA money talks. There's a great analogy for anyone who has set up a smart device in their home. Why comes before how comes before what. Too often we focus on the what, tech, but not on how, interoperability, and why, business case. Any comments?
Well, I think when Nathan's talking about learn their language, I think he must be talking about the piece of the discussion we had earlier that Greg brought out about making sure that we at the construction level are learning how to explain the value of our projects to senior management. I'm sure that's what Nathan's referring to at that.
Yeah. Just summarizing what everybody was saying. Yeah, no, it was yeah, not a question, more just a confirming comment. This is great stuff.
And I also have a question for our panelists. Can you provide perhaps a case study, and without giving the name of your client, of how you worked with a particular client who was having difficulty adopting technology?
I can take that, Rana.
Okay.
So I'll start, right? Within my current role, it's one of the things that I do today, right? And I think Nathan's point is on track, right? We have to start working as to the why, but we also have to make it real, right? A lot of times when we have conversations about the strategy and the why this is important and the big picture, we forget that this needs to be made real, right? And that's what's important. So it's not only about understanding where you are in your current state, right? Assessing and benchmarking with others in your industry, because just because you feel you're doing better, right? If you don't compare yourself with others in your industry, that doesn't mean you could be really bad and just getting better at being bad, right? If you are not able to compare and contrast with others within your industry, well, we grew 10%, great. What does that mean in the grand scheme of things that we're ultimately working through? And then in addition to that, when we're talking about adoption and working with our customers, is helping them measure, helping them figure it out, and making it real for them. Let me not show you in theory what this looks like with a pretty PowerPoint. Let me hold your hand, walk you through it. Let me show you what this is. Let me help you build your network and talk to other customers that have been through it, right? And I think that is very important, right? When we're talking about adoption, because it has to be the right level of adoption. The tech is just a tech, it's a tool, right? But it's the right level of adoption and making sure that you're making decisions that are sustainable in the future, not that you're happy. I personally don't care about happy customers. I care about healthy customers. I say it all the time. If you don't get mad at me, right, through the time that we work together, we have a problem because I want you to be healthy, right? Not necessarily happy.
Yeah, those are great comments, Jackie. I would also add on to that, you know, adoption is kind of tricky. A lot of companies use it as a proxy for value. And I would argue that there is a big difference between adoption and value. You can have high adoption and still be, you know, you can still, you know, be struggling to obtain value out of your technology investment. So I would bring it back a little bit to what we were talking about just a few minutes ago about making sure that you're you're measuring, you've identified the goal of the technology investment, you are measuring the progress you're making on that, and then tying that back to overall business value. And then, as I said about the change management piece, make sure that the folks in your organization who you are expecting to use these technology tools understand the high level value so that they buy into it.
Absolutely. So as you guys were answering that, one of the things I thought about that some people have benefited from, maybe they were starting to adopt the technology, but had not quite gotten there yet. And you've got construction folks out in the field at the beginning of a day who in the past would look at a job hazard analysis, and that might get passed around within a work team and everyone sign off on that. In today's environment, you probably don't want everybody in that crew touching the same piece of paper or handling the same ink pen, because you're wanting to keep them as safe as possible. And so the same thing would go to drawings or specifications. I think you want to minimize the physical handling of items that then need to get passed off to someone else. So maybe it's a little bit of an unintended benefit. So, and I think that kind of leads into, the second focused area that really jumped to close to the top was COVID and the post-COVID era. So, we're all dealing with a new normal, and we're in an industry that has been heavily dependent on paper. Any other comments or recommendations you would make as to how the industry might use technology to move away from the paper? Oh, I may have stumped my panel.
I might share a little bit there.
Okay, go ahead, Channel.
I think it should be obvious that moving away from paper in the way the technology is essentially digitizing everything. And if you remember what John said earlier, the great part about the digitization is that now that is data, and that data can tell you things predictively, or at least just informatively, so that you now know I can make a better decision. If you think about the interactions that we have and the concerns over safety, because if you touch a piece of paper that everybody had touched, or if you're engaging at a necessity of working on the same project, you're potentially shifting your mindset away from maybe what you initially thought technology could be used for. And so, weaving in the theme of adoption, the interesting part here is that we've seen over the last 6 or 7 months the extreme speed at which adoption has had in the technology space. Like, people just literally cannot do their job for the first time. And the interesting thing about human behavior is that, if you think about motivation as like an elephant, it's really hard to move it if you want to move it. But once it's moving, watch out. And I feel like that's where we are. We've moved an elephant, and the elephant is on the warpath, if you will. What we're probably needing to keep an eye out for, and I'm gonna change the direction of my answer just a little bit to say that we need to be keeping an eye on the future. We will be able to interact at some point again to some level that we all feel comfortable. That's going to happen. It may take longer than any of us want. We need to remember that this technology was giving us something back. It wasn't just meaning we go deeper into the technology. It gave us the time back to do what we really miss right now, which is building relationships, which is getting face time with our stakeholders, maybe socially distanced face time, but we're getting it nonetheless. And so think about technology as an enabler of the types of things that you actually want to do. And so when we come back out of this on the other side, what do you want to spend your time doing? Administrative tasks, diving into the cool functionality of technology? Sure, that's fun. But maybe we ought to be looking back at how we've developed as a society, as a group of humans doing work together that we all love. So I kind of want to challenge that right now we're seeing adoption that's enabling something that in the future, hopefully we remember this time and go, man, what I wouldn't have given to just have a face-to-face conversation with a colleague, shake a hand, go grab a beer, watch a show together. I mean, any of those things. I'm going to say that's something I want, the good and the potential better that's going to come from this shift to technology in this way.
Any other questions, Rana, that have been submitted?
Not at this time. Nathan made a comment about separating OKRs from KPIs, but we don't have a specific question in our chat box. If somebody would, if anybody has any questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in there.
I've got one for Rodney, actually.
Okay.
So Rodney, you've been a long time fixture at Duke, no pun intended. Yeah, kind of pun was intended. Rana liked it. So you've been a long time there at Duke. What do you feel is the greatest impediment to the utilization of emerging technologies in your business or on your projects?
You know, Greg, I think some of it, and we talked about this in the first breakout session, I think some of it is just the fact that we're all human and we're creatures of habit. And most people don't like change and don't embrace change eagerly. And I think these last few months that we've been through has forced us to embrace change and embrace technology out of the sheer need to survive. And you know, I know we were piloting teams as we left the office for what we initially thought was going to be a couple of weeks. And I would say within a month, we were all pretty much experts at using Teams. And it wasn't because we were so eager to learn something new. It was because we needed something that worked and would allow, you know, you to interface with your coworkers and exchange information in real time.
Thanks, Rodney. Appreciate that.
So,
it's me.
someone
I'll add.
ready to say something? Okay, go ahead, Jackie.
I'm going to add to yours and Chandler's. I also think one of the things we have to be cautious about is technology and change fatigue, right? Folks are tired, right? And part of the shiny new toy is that technology comes out or all these nice new little features come out, and then everyone is like, this is going to make your job better, right? You're going to be able to do your job better. Having done global rollouts, I will tell you that is the worst phrase anybody can say. So if you forget about a lot of the things that I've told you today, this is one thing I want you to remember. Whenever you're doing change management or you're introducing a new technology, do not say, you know, this is going to help you do your job better, right? Because the truth is, was I doing my job badly in the first place? So it's not from a change management being able to accept it. And we have to also be cautious with fatigue, because we see it all the time. We're getting a bunch of emails from different places of all these different technologies that are coming in. We're not allowing folks to get an opportunity to internalize, right? And change comes from within. We don't give them a chance for them to internalize that the change is coming by the time that we're already presenting something shiny and new to be able to be there. So we do have to be cautious when we're bringing this forward, because there is a lot going on to be able to do that. And if you have too much, right? There's so many options. How are you going to measure, right? Which one is really working based on the preference of folks as it relates? So,
Jackie, I have a quick question on that. So earlier there was talk about speaking the language and talking up. I think it's very important, and I'd like to get you, Chandler, and John's perspective on it, but you also have to talk to the front line who's actually utilizing the tools. How do you get their buy-in and the what's in it for me? You talk about change fatigue. People are burnt out and people are creatures of habit. Rodney and I were just talking about this in our breakout. You get accustomed to what you're doing. So how do you proactively show them the what's in it for me to help them embrace it?
Yeah, I have two quick thoughts on that. And some of it goes back to some of my previous comments. I think one is you have to involve the users up front in the decision process. If you invest in a technology and then sort of retroactively just drop it on them after the investment's already been made, that's not going to go over well with the users. And I unfortunately I see that not infrequently. We'll finish. We'll get in with new set of customers and new users, and we'll have to explain to this room full of users what the new customer purchased, and explain to them. It's like going through a sales cycle all over again, right? So I think leaders should get the users involved up front and let them know what's coming. And then the other point, again, I made this point previously, make sure the users understand the objective of the investment, right? If they know, frequently, just to be candid, and this kind of goes to what Rodney said a few seconds ago, from the user perspective, when you're learning something new, it doesn't feel easier. It feels harder, right? It feels like it's one more thing to learn, one more thing to do. And so from the user perspective, a new technology, again, Rob, to your point, a change in how you're doing a change in your daily life, it doesn't feel easier. So making sure that they understand what is the objective of this technology, how is our organization going to benefit from this technology, and just enforcing that, quite frankly. Jackie said this a few minutes ago, you buy the technology for a reason. Make sure you keep everyone focused on what that reason is.
I think just a good practical example is to have quick wins. Give people that sense of like, okay, this can be done, and then highlighting those in a very public way, making sure people see that there is success being had in this new form, this new technology, or this new approach. But you absolutely have to have them feel it, see it, and then know it themselves. They can't just take your word for it. They have to experience it. So yes, when you bring those people in is important. As John was saying, it needs to be in early, needs to be quick, and then give them the little influences that show that this can be done and this is for them, and then highlight those, those successes, the bright spots, the things that stand out, and say, look, this is happening, this is working. It's important to kind of build that momentum.
Okay, very good. I'm going to sneak in a little plug for tomorrow's workshop as I set up this last question for the panel. In our workshop tomorrow, our keynote speakers are a couple of brothers. Eddie and Tyler Campbell are better known as the Construction Brothers through the podcast that they do on a weekly basis. And one of the things they do at the end of every podcast is they use what they call the megaphone question. So I'm going to steal that concept from them. So if you like listening to those guys, please reach out to Rana and find out how to join us tomorrow. But so the kind of the megaphone question for this panel is, what's the one big thing that no one is talking about that has the potential to disrupt the way construction is done today?
Wow.
Well, I'm sure we all have thoughts on that one. I can chime in on that a little bit. I'll kick off the conversation. I mean, I think that the subject of supplier relationship management and improved risk management is I wouldn't say it's not that no one's talking about it. In fact, in some circles, it's a very hot topic right now. But I also, from our perspective, most of the programs that we see out there are still pretty fledgling and in their infancy. So I think the development of improved supplier relationship management programs from construction owners and improved risk management programs are something that can be very disruptive in the future. Disruptive, in a good way, from the standpoint of bringing technology and data to bear on those two issues.
Okay. Chandler or Jackie?
Jackie, why don't you?
Yeah, sure.
Chandler's buying more time, Jackie. He needs to think about it just another moment.
Letting the waves of good ideas hit me.
Talk a lot, so he's like, I'm gonna let it go first.
He's got to sort out all those great ideas coming. So it's your turn.
Yeah.
Just kidding, Chandler.
From a procurement perspective, I would say I agree with John, right? Managing supplier risk, doing supplier segmentation is important, right? Having been in sourcing for a long time, we spend a lot of time looking at how we review suppliers, right? Are they strategic? Are they operation? Are they transactional? But we don't spend enough time also focusing on what do you represent for that supplier, right? We always think about, oh, we got to get more competition and there's rules. You have to have more than 3 suppliers on this bid. But what about the type of supplier and what do you actually represent for that supplier? And being able to track that is definitely something that's key, and it's opening up folks' mind, because especially now with everything that happened from a supply chain perspective, that supplier might have had what you needed, but you were not maybe important enough for them to give it to you. So if you would have done your supplier segmentation from their perspective of how they marry you and how they look at you, you would have probably said, well, maybe this was option A, but I'm going to go to option B because this is the way for me to ultimately go. AI, I don't necessarily think is not one that we're all talking about. It has become a buzzword, right? Like strategic, like value, right? Everything now is AI, and it's a big buzzword. But you're getting all these data, you're getting all these insights, and then you get analysis paralysis, right? Because 4 + 4 = 8, but that 8 could mean 10 different things if ultimately how you're doing it. So implementing and having, the use of AI when you're looking at this insights, when you're trying to make these decisions, is actually helpful, because folks are going through analysis paralysis because the whole amount of data that they're getting might be a little bit too much for them to consume, right? And I think those are 2 areas that folks should look at. It's not enough how you look at them. When you're doing your supply segmentation and you're looking at your supplier risk, make sure you put a category there that refers to how they look at you. Because with everything that's happening, right, you may need to have a plan B to get to what you need to from your supply chain perspective.
Yeah,
Chandler?
I guess when I think about all the things that aren't being talked about, it's a lot of incremental things, a lot of things around what analytics are telling us. Obviously, is a big thing, the predictive analytics from AI and machine learning, which we haven't reached a level of data sort of collection to the tune of, say, a Facebook or an Amazon, but we're on the path anyway. I would say, what stands out to me are 2 not really new concepts, but from a technological advancement perspective, they have, I think, a way to revolutionize this industry, and that would be around prefabrication and a way to think about how you govern or hold accountability to a project within a BIM model. So neither one of those are new. We've been talking about BIM as if it's the new end-all be-all for years. But what I think we're getting to is a level of acceptance that a BIM model can be something you're held contractually to versus, say, just 2D documents, which somehow still we're taking the beauty of a model in 3D and turning it into something flat that we then build from. So I think that's going to be something that'll revolutionize the whole process, the way that things are documented, the way that we interact with the information that tells us how to build or how to procure. And then again, with prefabrication, because we're moving more into a pre-making it, pre-modeling it sort of mindset, and even sharing designs before they exist in reality, and then think about how they're being manufactured. There's going to be efficiency gains that this industry will see that other industries have been utilizing for years. And I think those are going to be where we see it. And from a physical standpoint, it's going to be prefabrication.
Chandler and Jackie, how can an organization like CURT promote broader acceptance of these emerging technologies? You know, I think back when I was a kid in the business, safety was a big deal, you know, back in the late 80s, early 90s, and then workforce development, of course, and doing training and monitoring training and et cetera. How can CURT play a role in broader, faster acceptance of these inevitabilities?
I think there's, I would say onboarding, right? Continue to onboard peers that talk about it. There's more credibility when you hear it from somebody that's been there, that's done that, right? And that they can actually speak from experience versus something that's so way up high that it just might not be relevant to your day-to-day life, right? So make sure that even though, and we talked about this, right? Having to speak different languages, but we need to make sure that we hear from our peers, right? That there's credibility behind it. And being on the phone or a webinar for an hour, having people talk at you, it's boring, right? And people don't want that. So how about gamification, right? We're seeing this more and more often. Gamification, making sure that they're part of the solution, not that there's a preset notion of absolutely everything that's going to happen, but the fact that they can build it on the fly, just like if they were live in the session, right? So get credibility, get their peers talking about it, and they might agree or disagree, but that's what's actually going to bring insights. And then the second part of that is gamification, right? Make it entertaining, make it in a way that I could actually interact. There's so many elements out there that we can ultimately use, and that helps to drive that credibility, right? And I think that helps to get people involved because we spend endless hours in front of a computer. You know, what's in it for me? And also, you know, why should I be enticed to actually join and participate to bring these things forward? Get them to play.
Thank you.
You got it.
Okay, do we have any other questions from the audience? Well, John, Jackie, Chandler, I really appreciate you guys joining us and participating in the panel today. And Greg, I'll turn it back over to you with a couple of extra minutes.
Yeah, thanks, Rodney. Appreciate it. So we've got about 7 minutes ahead of schedule, which is good. We're not going to waste that time. We're going to give it back to you. Let me tell you just a little bit, however, before we get started. Keep in mind, there is a webinar tomorrow, all day tomorrow. It's outstanding. The content's terrific. The cost is low, low, low. And it is called Start to Finish, Utilizing Procurement and Contracting in the Foundations of Construction. So there again, if you haven't registered and you have time to do so or would like to invite a colleague, feel free to do that, and Rhonda DeBro can help you get registered. That's available to you as well. We are going to have a bio break, and I promise, within 2 minutes, and so we'll take it all the way till 3:10. At 3:10, we're going to begin some awards. As you probably know, CURT is an industry leader in safety, workforce development, project excellence, and we give recognition to those who have done remarkably well along those areas. At a traditional meeting, this time last year, for example, in Florida, we didn't have time at the evening event to allow people to share some of their learning. So what we've done during this event is carve out the typical time we've used for CURT committees. We've dispersed those throughout the month of November into December. And instead, we've elongated the time that we normally would devote to the award recipients, not to just waste it, but to use it. And by that, I mean sharing with you what some of the key learnings, key deliverables, aha moments were for those who did achieve excellence in safety, workforce, and in project excellence. So again, that's what's going to follow. We've got some inputs from all over the world, actually, and it'll be an exciting time, not only to celebrate your colleagues, but to get some information that you might not otherwise be able to get. Greg Palmer, is there any additional information on these award winners that our attendees might need to know? I know in the past we've done a somewhat more extensive handout or brochure. Is there anything that these folks here need to know about our award winners, Greg Palmer?
In the CURT app, you will find an electronic version of the program that we would pass out in a normal face-to-face situation.
And what does that have in it, Greg?
It lists each award type, the reason that we do it, and the winner for each category, and a little bit about why they won, as well as any honorable mentions that were there.
Fantastic. Again, we want to resource you. We want to give you perspective. We want to give you our experiences. We want to share those. That's the purpose. I promised at 2:55 I'd give you your 5 minutes back. It is 2:55. I'm giving your 5 minutes back. Please, now this is a bio break, so don't sign off. Stay with us. But at 3:10, we're going to begin our awards event. We want you to be with us. All right. Don't miss it. We'll see you in 15 minutes. Well, welcome back to the final segment of our time together. It was very fitting, Chris Fout, that they were singing Bye Bye Miss American Pie drove my Chevy to the levee, not my Lincoln. Chris Fout is going to talk to you in just a few minutes, formerly with General Motors. Currently with Merck, and I just couldn't resist hearing the lyrics of that grand old song and seeing your mug down there on my bar. Welcome everyone. This is a very exciting time of the CURT fabric, the history of CURT in the annual year in the year, and this is the time of our awards of excellence presentations. And we're excited to share with you who the award recipients are out of a multitude of submissions made. And we want to honor and recognize them in no less aggressive celebratory fashion than we would if we'd have given a grand reception and a grand dinner, which we normally do, and fill the place with music and a lot of activity. But it's different, and we're going to roll with that here in just a moment. I want to take just a moment to also thank our sponsors, NCCER and Construct Secure. Their generous contribution makes what we're experiencing here today possible. So thank you, NCCER. Thank you, Construct Secure. Probably the most notable contribution of CURT to the safety or to the construction business has been improving construction safety performance. It started before many of us were born back at the Business Roundtable. It continues to this day, and it will always, I promise, as long as I sit in the chair, always be a pillar of what we offer our CURT owners and contractors: how to do it better, how to do it safer, how to implement technologies that reduce risk of harm and injury to our co-workers. And today we're going to celebrate some of those who have done just that. I mentioned Mr. Chris Fout just moments ago, formerly with General Motors, now with Merck. Chris has been a leader in promoting construction safety performance, and I've asked him just to say a few words about this award, and then we'll tell you who the recipients are. Chris?
All right. Thank you very much, Greg. This is actually one of the best parts of this job, as being co-chair of the Safety and Wellness Committee, is actually being able to award and recognize companies that have gone above and beyond when it comes to making sure their workers return home safely every day. But since CURT's inception in 2000, improving safety performance was one of the first initiatives that was undertaken. There are many reasons for improving safety. The simple economics of it alone, when properly executed, can save companies thousands, if not millions of dollars in reduced insurance claims, reduced workers' compensation claims, retaining skilled workers, which requires less repetitive training, thereby saving costs. It can also improve quality and productivity when given proper attention in the front end loading of a project. There's also the requirements of OSHA and other regulatory agencies around the globe. But most importantly, there's the human side of safety. Put quite simply, safety saves lives. It's hard to measure how many lives have been saved by implementing and executing proper safety plans and techniques. The cost avoidance could easily be in the millions, depending upon the size of the project. Actively engaged owners recognize that it's their responsibility and obligation to make sure every worker on their site goes home to their loved ones each day injury-free. They have the ability to demand the best and the highest standards when it comes to safety and quality from their contractors. With that said, I'd like to thank all of those who submitted applications this year For those that were not selected, I encourage you to continue improving your safety programs and rise above and beyond from doing what is required to doing the exceptional. For those companies that are being recognized today, I congratulate you on behalf of myself, my Safety and Wellness Committee co-chair, Kevin O'Shaughnessy, and the entire Safety and Wellness Committee. Oh, and a quick safety note to the winners: make sure you have your safety glasses on when you handle the award, or put a rebar cap on top to prevent getting an eye poked out. Congratulations again, guys. And now I'll go ahead and turn it over to Greg, where he will now read the names of the 2020 Construction Industry Safety Excellent Award winners.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. You know, one of the sound bites I got from what Chris says is let's move beyond doing what is required to doing what is exceptional, or gets us to an exceptional status. Thank you for that challenge, Chris. And these following folks are certainly on a road to achieving that goal of becoming exceptional. I first want to read to you the Contractor Safety Award winners, and we follow the NAICS code. So this is NAICS code 236, General Building Contractors. And the winner for the organization with greater than 500,000, but less than or equal to 3 million hours worked per year is Graycore Industrial Constructors. And the award recipients are shown here. They are Sean Adderton, Kevin Grooms, and Patrick Coons. Take a look.
Sean Anderton, Kevin Grooms, and Patrick Coons are representing Graycore Industrial Constructors, winner of the size constructors more than 500,000 and less than or equal to 3 million work hours per year. Sean, Kevin, and Patrick, congratulations on this honor. And I hope that you'll be able to answer just a few questions for us. First question, I'm going to direct this to Sean. Sean, what would you say are 2 or 3 factors that made your project a success?
Thank you, Rana. I think first and foremost, extensive planning efforts. The team spent an extreme amount of attention to detail, anticipating risks, the reactions, and how to mitigate them. Particularly having to work fully exposed in the extreme Wyoming winter elements on top of the normal construction challenges. So having a well thought out plan as a foundation and working tightly to that plan really allowed the team not only to control those variables, but also recognize new challenges that came up and address them quickly with minimal effect. In fact, COVID-19 was one such example of the unexpected. No less important was communication. Even a great plan only works if communication plans and skills aren't present to really ensure that everyone understands the plan, what the expectations are, their responsibility, and exactly what to do and who to contact if anything changes. This was true not just for the construction safety aspects, but it also proved true in addressing some of the COVID symptoms and known exposure to avoid any kind of spread. And, finally, I think third, teamwork. Our Graycore team really embraced the subs, the vendors, the client to form one cohesive team that really had each other's best interest in mind, talk through all the elements so that everything moved forward in one direction, not just to get the job done, but watching out for each other and being willing to have tough, proactive discussions.
Do you have any additional comments from either Kevin or Patrick?
Yeah, I think Sean touched on a good point. I mean, communication is make projects very successful, and the teams being able to generate a good understanding of what the client's expectations are. That is one thing that I think makes our project successful, and glad she touched on that.
Kevin Grooms, let me ask you, what was the biggest safety challenge that the team overcame, and how did you succeed?
Well, thank you, Rhonda. The Hudson project, which is located in Central Illinois, was a very important project for us, and one of the most valuable resources we had down there was a project team that understood their abilities to self-perform the work. And we had some struggles early on with some subcontractors that unfortunately couldn't perform the work, so we had to take over some of the scopes and the ability of our teams to be able to be adaptable and nimble to take on these challenges really created a successful project for us. If we didn't have those abilities, it would have been could have been a failure project. But at the end of it, we had a zero injury project as well as a success. And just the culture that our teams bring is really what takes us to the next level.
Thank you again to all three of you. And you have represented Greg Corps well. Congratulations. And we look forward to future applications from you. Thank you.
And congratulations to Greg Corps. The next NAICS code is 237, and it's called Heavy Construction Contractors with greater than 200,000 hours and less than or equal to 500,000 work hours per year. And the award recipient is the Nova Group. And the award recipients are Scott Victor and Cole Davis. I will also remind you that these folks have already received their award. You can see a copy of it right down there on your screen in the bottom right. It's got glass and steel and rock and other components that are familiar to the industry. But we do congratulate the Nova Group. Let's hear from them right now.
I'm talking today with Scott Victor and Cole Davis from Nova Group. They are the winner of the size heavy construction contractors greater than 200,000 and less than or equal to 500,000 work hours per year. Well, what was the biggest safety challenge that you overcame, and how did you succeed?
Yeah, so we've had quite a few challenges over the past few years on some specific projects. Some of them involved unforeseen conditions. We're working on a project down at the Lawrence Livermore National Laboratories, which is classified as a Superfund site. So as we're digging and excavating a lot of soils to put in a lot of our electrical systems, we came across a lot of unforeseen material, garbage, debris that we really didn't know what it was. And so that involved us to shut down, some work suspensions, to involve and include a certified industrial hygienist to come on site and do testing and monitoring. We've had our CIH involved in silica monitoring, in hexavalent chromium monitoring while welding stainless steel, and manganese. I mean, you name it, they've been involved. So we've had to really bring in a lot of resources to help us get through this project and continue on our path. Other challenges, again, with unforeseen conditions, while working at Kaneohe Marine Corps Base over in Oahu, we came across some skeletal remains while digging on an ancient burial site. And so that obviously shut us down. It required us to be suspended for quite some time and to have a whole team of archaeologists come on site, and which we're not used to having non-construction folks on our job. I assume that there's about a dozen of them when I was out there as we're trying to onboard them and familiarize them with our heavy equipment, and to have us watch out for them and then watch out for us as they're used to using spoons and shovels to excavate and search for these things. We're trying to make it, quick, get through, and continue moving on. So just some of the challenges with that. Of course, COVID-19 was a big challenge for all of us. We had several projects shut down until we could come up with a COVID pandemic plan. So we were able to come up with a really good detailed plan of how we're going to keep our people safe, and roll that out along with a PAC committee to help field a lot of the questions that are coming in on a regular basis. And of course, the daily questionnaires and the PPE rush, trying to get everything on site to keep our people moving. So quite a few challenges we had to overcome during this time, but we did pretty successfully.
What information about your project do you feel is really most important that you share with the CURT audience?
So I'll take the first couple ones here. I think the most important for any safety program is you have to have top-down leadership commitment. If the senior management does not believe in your safety program, you're doomed. You will not have a successful program. So I sit in on every single safety committee meeting. I'm part of, if we do have a near miss or an accident, I'm part of the root cause analysis So my commitment to safety, if it wasn't there, I don't think it would flow down to the rest of the team if they wanted to take it seriously. We'll talk about sticky here.
Yeah, so we've also, along with that paradigm shift, we've come up with a few new programs, and it has to do with the capacity model. And what we've done is we've rolled out the capacity model, basically 101 training to all of our craft and field employees. And we've expanded upon that to the TCM 102 training, which is to all of our supervisors and lead people who are directing work. And the philosophy behind that is sticky, stuff that kills you. We want to have people focused, hyper-focused on areas on the project that will actually kill you, such as electricity and falls and crush by and stored energy, electrocution, these areas where we really need to build in a capacity for failure so that, we understand that humans make mistakes, our employees will fail at times, and we need to build in that capacity so that when they do make those mistakes and they do fail, that there's going to be enough of a buffer zone for them to do that safely, to fail safely. And so we've really done a pretty good job on rolling this out to every one of our employees, whether it's banners and stickers to the actual training. We track all this so we know exactly who's done it and who hasn't. And it's been really important to us to get that out to everybody. In addition, employee involvement we do a weekly crew-led safety audit, which again, our safety committee sits through and tracks every month. So Scott's looking to make sure that every project has done these weekly crew-led safety audits, and that gets the crew involved in the investigation process to tell us what they're seeing every day, because no one better than the boots on the ground to explain to us what's happening.
And they come up with some really innovative ideas, and they see stuff we just don't see.
Thank you for your time. Congratulations.
Thank you, Rana. Appreciate that. And Cole, Scott, thanks for weighing in with us. I might also add Teal Harriman to that group of those being recognized. We were chatting with him a little earlier today, and I'm sure that he also was an important part of making that safety culture of Nova Group work. Nova Group, congratulations to you. Glad that you're part of our organization. The next award winner is NAICS code 237, General Building Trades Contractors. And this particular category has greater than 500,000, but less than or equal to 3 million work hours per year. And the winner is W.T. Byler. And the award recipient is Wendell Ricklick. Wendell and W.T. Byler, congratulations on a job well done. We're eager to hear from you.
Wendell Ricklick is representing W.T. Byler Company, winner of the Size Contractors Award for greater than 500,000 and less than or equal to 3 million work hours per year. Wendell, congratulations. What were 2 or 3 factors that made safety performance a success on your projects?
Well, number one, education of our employees is real critical. When we begin these projects, we want to, do the right education, make sure we've got the right people. We're thinking about it, number 2, the pre-construction. Pre-construction is so important. So when we hire new employees, we do our best to ensure that, they receive, the knowledge that makes them successful in the field. And but our frontline supervisors, they're key to remind everyone, every step of the way, safety's first. You start a task, stop. Take one little moment, think, what could happen, observe, is there a better path? Is this thing too heavy? Get help if you need it. That little moment, then proceed. That's incredible. That's incredible for us to follow, beyond the workplace. Do this at home. But really important to our operation is, heavy equipment training. Not only for the heavy equipment operators, but for the helpers on the ground. The flaggers, the spotters. It's really important to our operation, that everyone maintains eye contact. If we know where everything is, We know where all the people are on the ground. That's very, very important. That's even part of our JSA. Our JSAs break in the morning. They break, with a eye contact, and then we break and proceed. But things like OQ training, for our folks working around pipeline, working on the railroad, our on-track worker program, it's incredible. We train in, all of these different types of work that we do. But then I talked about pre-construction. Pre-construction, that's the key. You get your lead team together, you lay out the drawings, really dive into the job. Answer, the execution strategy. And where are the pipeline corridors? What is the known risk? Are there any obstructions? What is the risk to the public? What are the steps to building this thing? These are big projects that we work on. Many of them mega projects, with hundreds of units of heavy equipment. What's the traffic point? What is the schedule? Do we have enough force? That's built into that schedule. Do we have the right amount of equipment? These are the questions, that we answer. We do this about 60 times a year. We we build 60 to 80 projects a year. And I'd say that, those are two very important things.
Thank you so much. We appreciate that, Wendell. Thanks for sharing your words of wisdom with us, and congratulations to W.T. Byler. From time to time, the judging gets so close that they feel that they would be remiss for not acknowledging those who just barely missed the cutoff for whatever reason. And so those are honorable mentions, and they truly are honorable mentions. We give an award for those. We recognize them in our magazine. And this is another case where in that situation, we have an honorable mention in this particular general building trades contractor category. And I'd like to at least recognize them here. And it's Barrier Construction, Peter Wilson, Paul Albrecht, and Matt Wilson were the ones that are responsible for this success. And Barrier, we thank you very much for your hard work and ensuring a continual reach for safety excellence. You are certainly worth mentioning. Your program is to be commended, and we hope you'll continue to apply and be recognized for this outstanding award. Thank you for that. I'd like to move on to NAICS Code 238, specialty trade contractors, those greater than $500,000 and less than or equal to $3 million. And the award recipient this year is United Group Services. The award recipients are Dan Fries and Kevin Sell. Congratulations, guys. We are delighted with your leadership in this area. Let's hear from them.
We have Kevin Sell here today. He is representing United Group Services, who is the winner of the Size Contractors Award for greater than 500,000 and less than or equal to 3 million work hours per year. Kevin, what are some factors that make United Group Services safety program a success?
So really, there's two or three. So first and foremost, without question, hands down, craft professional engagement participation. Without the people that are coming to work every day on their tools that are not engaged, they're not participating, they're not out involved in their permits and their STAs. If we didn't have that to a very high degree, we just wouldn't be, we would not be successful, period. So that's one. Two is, we always talk about this in terms of, we always talk about communication. And that can be just a standard answer for a lot of things, but for this, for a very positive approach, I mean, we talk about communication failures when things go wrong, but we never talk about communication, at least I don't think we do, when things go well. And communication in terms of helping our program to and from the sites, communication to and from the employees' homes, to and from the individual. And also, I would be remiss in not saying to and from OSHA. OSHA has been a very big partner of ours, specifically the Cincinnati area office and also the Region 5 office in Chicago. And lastly, leadership alignment. We have, in the last several years, have struggled and then mastered aligning the right leadership. And it's just not at the top. You know, when people say leadership, we're thinking, well, the executive team. And that's kind of where most organizations and ourselves need assistance and need improvement. And we have done a fairly good job. We're working on it every day to make sure that not only the executive team is are, but that people that report to us are aligned, and that we're developing that next generation of leaders and giving them the opportunity to be champions of safety and health. And that works. So those are probably three factors that, for purposes of that question, all came into play.
You mentioned OSHA, you've mentioned senior leadership. Are there any other, what you would consider most valuable internal or external resources that were utilized to reduce incidents?
Well, I mean, certainly we rely externally, we rely on our associations and the people that we're involved with, and specifically organizations like CURT, organizations to a most recent extent like SCORE, which is a, more of a regional user group affiliated with CURT, but also with our trade association, Associated Builders and Contractors. There's all these things that if you're really casting a broad net to improve total employee health, you're bringing all those into play to help you be successful.
Thanks, Kevin. And what information regarding your safety program would you consider to be most important to share with our CURT audience?
The single most external resource in the last year that has helped us is the Construction Industry Alliance for Suicide Prevention. No bones about it. That group has helped us focus on total employee health, preventing suicides, but that group was born out of some work that was done very early on by CURT and by ABC. And for our particular purposes at United Group Services, if it wasn't for Associated Builders and Contractors, and if it wasn't for the Construction Users Roundtable, we would never have received, at least in a timely manner, the solid information for suicide prevention, which enabled us to launch a program very quick and has also allowed us to engage with CISP and help others. So that, from an external standpoint, without question, has been the most impactful interaction.
Well, thank you, Kevin. And again, congratulations. We appreciate your application. We appreciate everything that you have done, that United Group Services has done to further the industry.
Thanks, Kevin, and thanks, Rana. Just a word for those who may just be joining us. We are in the middle of recognizing awards of excellence, and in this particular event for safety, in your app, in your meeting app, is detailed information, some contact information about each of these award recipients, what distinguished them, and how to get a hold of them. CURT is very collegial in terms of sharing information and improving the industry, one for all and all for one. It sounds pious, but I mean it sincerely, and I've experienced it for a number of years. So if you'd like to have inputs on improving your own safety performance, please feel free to reach out to Rana. As I mentioned a moment ago, there are some razor-thin margins in the judging and the scoring. And by the way, I'm seeing the award recipients for the first time, actually earlier this morning. So this is news to me as it is to you. I keep an arm's length, have no influence whatsoever over who wins these and who needs to be invited to improve and come back next year. And one of those hair-thin margins that necessitated an honorable mention is StarCon, which is a Chinbro company. Many of you know and recognize Peter Chinquette and David Fulmer from CURT meetings in the past. Fellas, thank you so much for leading the way at StarCon. Thank you, Peter, for being such a loyal part of CURT. And I would also encourage you to continue to reapply in the years ahead as you achieve improvement in your own safety performance. Thank you so much for that. CURT also takes great delight in offering an association an opportunity to present their efforts in safety. You heard Kevin Sell say a moment ago, if it weren't for CURT, then some of these suicide prevention tactics and other programs, along with our partnerships with those who specialize in that, wouldn't have been well known. And you heard him say they depend upon associations for information, resources, experiences of others. Sound familiar? And we want to recognize the Association Award winner for safety this year, and it's NAWIC. NAWIC stands for the National Association of Women in Construction. Terrific group with whom we've partnered on many things in years past and have a long-term working relationship. The award recipient is Kathy Dobson, and this is some of the leadership team at NAWIC. Let's hear from them.
Here today, representing NAWIC, National Association of Women in Construction, and is accepting on their behalf the Size Association Award. Kathy, thank you for joining me today. What information regarding safety does NAWIC feel is most important to share with our current audience?
Well, I think that probably the most important thing is to utilize your resources and engage in the other associations that we all have relationships with, because everybody's got a piece of the safety pie, and if we combine our efforts, it's much more synergistic, and particularly for NAWIC, because we have so many companies that are very small and they don't always have an opportunity to link up with some big organizations. We do it for them, and we can share that information with them. So I think that's really, I mean, that's an essential component of why we do things, and why we have worked so diligently over the last few years to get those good relationships with Kurt and the AGC and TALK and OSHA and CPWR, all of those organizations that all help to build on our climate and our culture of safety that we have within the organization.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And thank you to all the members of NAWIC. This is a very special award, and congratulations.
We are very, very pleased to receive this award.
And Kathy, we're very, very proud to give it to you for your fine work there. And we appreciate your long-term relationship that we have with NAWIC and your individual companies and the Construction Users Roundtable, particularly along its safety effort. And congratulations to you and your team once again. We're now going to move to the Owner Safety Award winners. And we have different categories for those as well. The first one is the Company-Wide Project or Portfolio Award. And the award recipient is MSD GES EMEAAP. It is a Merck, Sharp, and Dome project. That's essentially what all those letters mean, and there is more information about this fine organization in your materials. The award recipients are Sarah Fitzgerald and Chris Dummermuth, and you will also see some of their key team members that helped them achieve this award. Let's hear a little bit from some of them right now.
Sarah Fitzgerald and Chris Dummermuth are here from Merck's International MSD GES division. They are the winner of the Size Owners Company-Wide Project. Sarah, can you please tell us what are 2 or 3 factors that make your projects a success?
So first of all, thank you for the honor, and we're delighted to accept it. But for me, I was pausing to think about what were the factors, and it was the repeat work with our partners. And so those partners across all the supply chain, and that they were engaged with our safety program and they shared the same values as us. And we set really clear expectations. And then we really then focused on culture and safety as a value, not a priority. We looked at rewarding successes and then investigating and learning from incidents and trends, right? So it's fully acceptable to stop work, take a pause, reevaluate, maintain this chronic unease, right? So this desire to continuously improve and just not be satisfied with, status quo.
Thank you. What was the biggest challenge that the team overcame, and how did you succeed?
So we're lucky enough to have a very diverse and widespreading region. It's made up of many countries. So our region is from Ireland through to New Zealand. So very widespreading, different cultures, different languages, sometimes very different attitudes towards safety. So we've had to undertake projects in locations that were new to our team, and together with not being familiar with the area, not being familiar with construction or trade partners. So what we then used, we took the advantage of this extensive network to assist the teams in the new areas. So we had a series of relocations, we had two-way site education and upskilling visits. So we had the new teams come walk our existing established sites to witness firsthand the way we worked. And then we had some of our existing teams make extensive visits and then sometimes relocations to the new sites to set the team up. So our primary focus became employing boots on the ground and kind of coaching, mentoring approach. But later then we were able to switch back to focus on the development of the right culture and the desire to work safe.
Thank you. Anything else that you would like to add?
I'm just very proud of the team. When Chris rang me, I jumped up and down and I'm still jumping up and down.
Well, great. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Chris, if we can switch to you for a second here. During the time of COVID-19, what have you had to do differently?
During COVID-19, and I think in the end, you just have to think about your work processes so differently. The one thing too that I really have learned from this is basically, I remember in February, we started talking about COVID-19, and it was something that was out there. There wasn't an urgency for it. And I think in the end, one of the things that you have to just go ahead and do is understand things are very fluid. And outside external things like a COVID, all of a sudden has a huge impact on how you're doing your work and why you're doing it that way. And I think in the end, the thing I would do most differently is go ahead and have more of an urgency and take it more serious, because most of the time when you heard about it, it was something that was out there, but it really didn't affect me. And you have to go ahead and now take it much differently, because now you see the impact and you understand it is about people's lives. So, I mean, while your project work is important, your people's safety is always paramount.
Should we keep going here? I'm going to extend my congratulations to Chris and to Sarah. Sarah is coming to us, I think, Chris Fout, from someplace in Ireland where
Yes.
it's late at night. And so this kind of capability allows us to engage folks like that who might not otherwise be able to travel. The next category for the Owner Safety Awards is International Project, 12 months or more in duration. The award recipient here is Janssen Sciences Ireland UC BioCork 2 project. It's part of the J&J. You can see down there at the bottom, Janssen Pharmaceutical Companies. It's a part of the Johnson & Johnson group. And accepting the award on behalf of Janssen is Jim Breen. Let's hear from Jim at this point.
Breen is the representative from Janssen Sciences Ireland, winner of the Kurt Size Award for International Project 12 or more months in duration. Congratulations, Jim. What was the biggest safety challenge that the team overcame, and how did you succeed?
Rhonda, thanks for the question and thanks for the award. Our biggest challenge on the project was really just making sure that our number one goal of the project, which was that everyone would go home each night in the same condition when they arrived. We had over 5,000 people on the project, and we all had them sign a safety charter, which basically meant that everybody was aligned to our safety policies and our goal to get everybody home. At one point, we had over 1,200 workers from 80 different subcontractors from 40 different nationalities. So the big challenge was just to ensure the communication, the engagement, that everybody knew that we all had to watch out for each other. And we did that through safety luncheons. We did that through director walkthroughs. And we really maintained that focus throughout the project, and we were proud that we were able to have a very, very good safety performance on the job.
And congratulations, Jim, to you on that award. The very last of our safety awards is the U.S. Project 12 months or more in duration. Again, these are owner safety awards. And the award recipient is ExxonMobil Global Projects Company, Blade Project 2020. It's a mouthful, but it's part of the ExxonMobil family of companies. The award recipient along here with his team is Nate Fonsbeck, and we're going to ask Nate to share a few words with you right now. Nate.
Nate Fonsbeck with ExxonMobil Global Projects Company is speaking with me regarding the receipt of the Safety Award for U.S. project more than 12 months in duration. Thank you for joining me today, Nate, and congratulations.
Thank you, Ron. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. I have a question for you. What are 2 or 3 factors that made your safety program a success?
So I think you need to start off with, I'd say 80% of safety is in the planning. And so if you can get early to remove as much risk as you can during that early design phase, that's the first step. Second step is early engagement with contractors to make sure that you're aligned on safety programs and systems, that you're speaking a common language around safety, and that they really understand what readiness to work means when you're mobilizing to the workplace, and how to prepare for that adequately in order to get your folks in the best shape possible to be able to work safely. That's kind of the preparatory phase. Once you're on site, I think there are 3 main factors that are most important. First is you need to create an environment for safety success and a strong safety culture. That is everything from outstanding facilities. It's got to feel and look different than maybe other people are accustomed to. You got to have good communications. You got to celebrate reporting. You need strong leadership. And if you can kind of cultivate early on with that environment, it allows you to grow a strong safety culture over time. Second, you got to have a robust training program focused on safety leadership, and we use something called human performance, and that's really helping the workers identify how their minds work, helping them understand airborne situations and how to mitigate those beforehand, and understand biases and where things can go awry in different work scenarios. And so we spend a full day training the workforce and getting them aligned on this human performance program, and then also focusing on the high-risk activities, what we call life-saving actions, and we have 12 of them within ExxonMobil Global Projects. And, everything from working at heights to working on moving equipment, opening process equipment, driving, there's several. And getting everyone focused on those high-risk activities so that they're managing those appropriately. And then the last piece on training is we have a safety leadership program for foremen on up. And that really gets everyone better around safety leadership in the field. It's not just a couple of safety people inspecting safety. You got to kind of bake safety into the whole planning pie there. If you do that appropriately, foremen understand leadership and safety. They're setting expectations, holding people accountable, making sure they understand that planning is key. And so when they get their job set up, they're being very successful. And the last one is a tight feedback loop and to reinforce and learn. So you've got to celebrate reporting. You can't drive anything under the carpet. And you got to set up your reward and recognition program to celebrate good reporting. Taking the time to do your verification measurement systems in the field. With good technology, we have a predictive solutions app that we use, which is real-time data. And we can look at that daily, weekly, and really get down to those things that we need to focus on to keep people from getting hurt. And then sharing those lessons quickly to tighten that feedback loop so that workers understand where those soft spots are in our systems, and we're addressing this quickly in the observation mode before we get people getting hurt, getting at that safety training. So
I'd say those three things in the field and those two preparatory things beforehand are absolutely key to have a successful and safe project.
Well, thank you very much. And again, we really appreciate your application and congratulations on your achievement.
Thank you, Nathan, and thank you, ExxonMobil, for your application. That are our safety. Those are our safety award recipients. Again, more information available in the app, available upon request to the office. You can connect to all these men and women if you'd like, and if you're a member of CURT, and we'd be glad to help you achieve what they have achieved as well. In the interest of time, a little schedule change. It's nearly 4 o'clock straight up here in the Eastern time zone, so we're going to move straight ahead with our next set of awards, and those awards are the Project Excellence Awards. And the person who champions Project Excellence like no other person I know is our own Al Schwarzkopf from Merck. I've known and worked with Al probably for over 20 years, and he is passionate, he has purpose, he has resources in his work, not only at Merck, but for the industry through CURT. And we're glad to have him here spearheading the Project Excellence Awards at CURT. Al, a few words.
Yes, Greg. Thank you very much. At the heart of the Construction Users Roundtable is the mission to help its members increase value they receive from the construction process. This is true whether you're an owner or a contractor or a trade partner. CURT wants all of its members to maximize their value together. We, as part of the Lean Project Delivery Committee, believe that the creation of the Construction Industry Project Excellence Awards was and is a critical component of that goal. The CIP Awards has at its core 3 main purposes. First, we want to facilitate common measures and language around a top-down view of overall productivity. To look at a team and a project's productivity from an overall effectiveness of the entire process rather than on a craft-by-craft view that traditionally measures the productivity of a task. Second, we want to identify and capture better practices in the delivery process. With better practices identified, we can help the industry continually improve through events like the CURT's Lean Summit and the National Conference. Third, we want to recognize the best of the best. We want to recognize not only individual contributors or single contractors, but recognize an entire project team. No one person delivers a project. No single organization delivers projects. Projects are delivered through creating and cultivating high-performing teams. Therefore, this is primarily and most importantly a team award. The CIP Awards Committee reviewed the team submissions across multiple industries. We evaluated the submittals around traditional measures like cost, schedule, safety performance. We even looked at the project team's ability to deliver on quality of the project, whether it be quality in the design or the quality of the construction or the building process. We examined both construction quality and design quality in every aspect of what was delivered in the project. These 4 critical elements served as the legs of a stool upon which all project excellence sits. Then we added a 5th element for the review entitled the innovation. How have we innovated the core of improvement? It's through innovation that we affect change, and it's how things are done. So CURT has some of the brightest minds in our ranks. By working together, we can bring the very best in our teams and our projects to the industry. So this afternoon, we will look at we'll award projects that excelled in all 5 of these areas. We'll see a project that played the game of chess with construction and operational needs by applying lean principles to ensure operations continued and were productive. Another project found creative and innovative methods to stabilize embankments while racing weather conditions to deliver the project ahead of schedule. Another project fully embraced technology and made it a cornerstone of its delivery and its success. And finally, one project completely reconfigured its facility to revitalize an existing site for a new product. All of these dealt with varying degrees of COVID as that impacted their critical delivery of the project. So without further ado, Greg, will you please announce the winners for the 2020 Construction Industry Project Excellence Awards?
Thank you, Al. It would be my pleasure to announce these. And again, I'm seeing them for the first time, as well as you, our audience, are. And our first award, with less than 50 million per year in project, is Procter & Gamble's Oxnard Plant Optimus project. That's the Procter & Gamble Oxnard Plant Optimus project. You see that leadership team there, and the award recipient is Dave Rader. Let's hear a little bit about this project from Dave.
Dave Rader is representing Procter & Gamble's receipt of the CURT Project Excellence Award for less than $50 million per year. Dave, first of all, congratulations on receiving this prestigious award. What are 2 or 3 factors that made your project a success?
The project was a success for a couple of reasons. The first one was probably the fact that we had very specific scope. So prior to funding, we spent a lot of effort defining exactly what we wanted to do, detailed layouts, specific equipment, and a strategy to make sure that we had a fully cooked plan before we got started. And that was key. And that was key to get buy-in from the site because it was such a major change. The second big thing was the effort that we employed Lean IPD. This was very new to our plant. And in fact, actually to a lot of our company in terms of project execution. We've always been a company that has done a lot of detailed engineering, a lot of specific, this is how things have to be done. And in the long run, that's cost us a lot of time and money. This project executed very differently. Looked for a partner for construction to actually execute the work. We took what the final plan needed to be, and we worked together developing how we make that happen. And as I look back, that was a huge success in delivering what we did. The third thing, though, was the people. So it wasn't just the people at the site and the people that did construction, it was people from around the category. Oxnard is a very small plant. We have very limited resources. And when we get into a major project like this, we can't pull enough people from the site. We actually use people from our central office in Cincinnati, as well as every single plant that we have within our family care business to bring people for both engineering and a lot for startup and delivery of the new equipment.
And finally, Dave, what was the most cost-effective strategy employed?
Well, there were kind of 2 things. One I mentioned was the Lean IPD effort. So the partnership that we had with Spirit Construction, who was the one that supported our construction effort, was really about developing this is the cost that we can afford. So, and in doing that, not only did we look at that, but we used it to help create, this is the, what we can fund on the project, what we can support, and then drive to that cost the entire way through the project. So it was a shared savings model. It worked very well. We did share savings. So in the end, P&G got money back. The contractor also shared in the additional savings for hitting their goals. And it was very much a partnership to make sure that we could basically meet the project needs in terms of what we could spend. This was a savings project. So we had to hit a specific rate of return. It was not an open-ended budget to go out and spend money on things. The second thing, though, was when we originally funded this project, it was very tight. So in other words, the savings, this was not a huge savings project. It was very marginal. So in order to keep that at the barrier that the company wanted, we instituted a team challenge. So the team challenge basically said, we need to figure out how to save about another $1 million on this project in order to keep it at that rate of return. That included obtaining a lot of used equipment from around our category and reutilizing assets that we had in the plant. Very traditionally, P&G is one that we like to go out and buy new equipment for everything we do. But this project was able to reutilize equipment that we've had around the category for a long time to save what turned out to be hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, thank you, Dave. Thank you for your time today.
Dave and Rana, thank you so much for that insight. Again, if you'd like to learn more, it's in the app, a little bit deeper dive, and we can certainly connect you up with Dave and his team. Dave, congratulations once again. Now, here again, razor thin margin on the judging. So receiving an honorable mention is Flint Hills Resources and Turner Industries Group, LLC. And you see some of that leadership team there. Included in that group are Carlos Gadiri and Eric Stampley. And fellows, we just congratulate you so much for your efforts. We're following your progress as things unfold and as you continue to improve and deliver project excellence. Thanks so much. And we look forward to seeing you again next year as well. The next category is greater than 50 million, but less than $1 billion per year projects. And the award recipient is Janssen Sciences Ireland UC Bio Cork 2 project. Again, it's a part of the Johnson & Johnson organization. And the award recipient here is Jim Breen. Jim, tell us about this particular project excellence effort.
Jim Breen is representing Janssen Sciences Ireland, the winner of the current Project Excellence Award for greater than $50 million and less than $1 billion per year. Jim, thank you for joining us today. I do have just a few questions for you. First of all, what are 2 or 3 factors that made your project a success?
Rana, thank you, and thank you for the CURT award. Really, we had 3 factors. One is it was a clear objective that we were going to build this plant to bring life-saving medicines to patients sustainably. The second one was that we had the leverage of our partners, project management group, which is the engineering, with John Sisk & Son, the contractor, the builder, and then also the Janssen employees, which have worked together for years. And so that was another big point. And the third element was we really had really good executive sponsorship, that we were reminded constantly what were the objectives, and they were top of mind for everybody. And we didn't let anything trip from those goals that were stated.
What was the most valuable internal or external resource utilized?
Great question, Rhonda. So for us, the big thing was we used a team that had worked together on other projects around the world. So that being project management group doing the engineering, John Sisk & Sons doing the construction and the commissioning, and the Janssen team. So by using those internal and external resources, which in many cases have worked, those teams have worked together for years, we were able to execute this project pretty flawlessly because we knew each other and we knew the capabilities of each firm, and it worked out extremely well.
What was the most cost-effective strategy employed?
Thank you, Rhonda, for the question. The most important thing for us is that the team that started the original concept actually stayed all the way through to the end. Since we were implementing a lot of new technology both to J&J and in some cases new to the industry, we wanted that team to be there from the start to the finish. And I would say for the most part, we were very, very successful at that. And that was not just the J&J Janssen folks, that was also the PM and CIS folks. And I think as most people would know and heard is, if the team stays together, typically we would have better outcomes in terms of cost, safety, performance, and most importantly, operability. So right now that team is actually involved in the startup of the plant.
Okay, great. Thank you, Jim, and congratulations to the team. I'm hearing a common theme in achieving project excellence, and it's teamwork. It's trite. We've all heard it. Teamwork makes the dream work. But in this case, you see where there's a lot of truth to that, and also a lot of money involved in terms of savings, return to the owner and the stockholder, and in terms of increased project improvement. So Janssen, congratulations to you. Jim, once again, thank you for your inputs to us. The next category, of greater than 50 million, but less than 1 billion per year winner is the TVA Construction Barnard Construction Company Incorporated Enterprise. And the award recipient, you see some of their team there. The award recipient is Jacob Horton, TVA Construction, Barnard Construction Company. Jacob, let's hear from you.
Jacob Horton from Tennessee Valley Authority is speaking with me regarding the receipt of a Kurt Project Excellence Award for greater than $50 million and less than $1 billion per year. Jacob, congratulations on your achievement. What was the biggest challenge that the team overcame, and how did they do it?
So in 2018 and 2019, the Tennessee Valley saw record rainfall. And I think for the project, we ended up with 72 weather days recorded. And so the Tennessee River and then TVA trying to manage all that storm water in that part of the year, towards the end of the year, beginning of the fall of 2019, or spring of 2019. We had all the rain from the north and the snow melt. So the Mississippi River and the Ohio rivers, affect the water level in the Tennessee River. And also our majority of our upstream material comes from a quarry in Missouri. And so it hit a point to where the Mississippi River was shut down. And so we couldn't receive the material through that route. So Barnard was quick to get multiple quarries on board. And GEI was very quick to help us get an approved product that we could use as an alternative. So whenever the navigation was shut down in that stretch of the river, Barnard was able to quickly move to another quarry and keep moving forward. And also for the downstream side of that, the high tailwater from the floods had our work area flooded at the beginning of the project and actually delayed our start. But again, Barnard had multiple common fill sources that even once we got started and we had some of those 72 rain days I was talking about, one of the borrow areas was more easily accessible during those rain events. So might have slowed them up a little bit, but it certainly kept them moving forward. So having those things, and that kind of goes back to the planning I was talking about earlier, having all those things in place beforehand, allowed them to still finish 5 months ahead of schedule. And I think that just shows how the efficiency of the project and the contractor worked around all those hard spots.
With the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, what did you have to do differently on the project?
So fortunately for us, we were about 2 or 3 months away from finishing the project up when all this started, but we still had to react to it as if it was in the middle of the project and just get started. First thing is keeping our people safe. So, following the CDC guidelines as a government organization, we try and follow that best as we can. And so social distancing, keeping the equipment clean, disinfected. It changed how we got people to and from the site. And also in the trailers, I was mentioned earlier, us being able to sit down and work together and hash through things in the conference room. Well, now we were sitting in our individual offices, all on one conference call for our plan of the day meetings and our weekly meetings and things of that nature. So it changed our operations drastically. Even TVA, we adjusted our manager's schedules to where we split 2 up. One would work a certain amount of time from home, and the other would work on site. That way to try and reduce that exposure. And if something were to happen and one of the others had to be quarantined, ideally we wouldn't be infected or quarantine at the same time. So that way we could rotate in and out of the site and keep the project moving forward. Thankfully, we finished up without any cases of the coronavirus for that project.
Thank you very much for your time. And again, congratulations on receiving this prestigious award.
Thanks again, Rana, for asking those very penetrating questions. And Jake, thanks so much for your answers. Congratulations to the entire TVA team. There is one more category that's greater than $1 billion per year. Not a lot of activity in this area in terms of current members, but there is an award recipient, and it's MSD, that is a part of the Merck organization. You can see part of their project team represented here, along with the award that they now have in their possession. And the award recipient is Mary Linehan. And let's hear a word or two from Mary, Rana.
Joining me is Mary Linehan with MSD, Merck's international company. They are the winner of our site mega greater than $1 billion per year award. Mary, congratulations. And can you tell us, what are 2 or 3 factors that made your project a success?
So thank you. And so certainly it is an honor to receive this award. And I would think certainly on Biotech Dublin, okay, we have been very successful when we compare ourselves to industry KPIs. We have worked almost 4.8 million man hours with a lost time accident. I guess we've done that whilst outperforming on quality, schedule, and cost benchmarks. And there are lots of factors, okay, that contribute to the success of a project on this scale. If I had to pick 3, I would probably pick the following, okay. So first and foremost, our team demonstrated unwavering commitment to our Merck operating principle of safety first, quality always. So putting safety out there as our primary value isn't new to anyone. But I think as a project, we were especially successful in elevating quality and really embedding a right first time mentality. So safety first and quality always influenced our execution strategy in that we maximized the amount of work off site so that it was completed in a more controlled environment. Safety first, quality always influenced our everyday decision making. And by eliminating stoppages associated with safety incidents and by eliminating waste associated with punches and rework, we've been really successful in delivering a project in the shortest timeline and at the least cost to the business. I think secondly, we were successful in that we fostered a really strong no change culture, okay? So we were able to eliminate that churn and so that our team could be remain fully focused on the end goals. I know we strive to do that on a lot of our projects, but certainly in Dublin, we really stuck to and lived by that principle. And then finally, I think key to our success was the fact that we put communication structures in place that ensured issues and problems were quickly escalated and dealt with, okay? So we didn't leave things fester such that it could cause significant impact. Instead, we had issues highlighted quickly. We were able to direct resources to ensure problems were dealt with head on.
Mary, you just mentioned resources. What would you say was the most valuable internal or external resource that you utilized?
Okay, so again, on our project, I would say that was both an internal and external resource in that it was our people. So it is people who deliver our projects. I guess as a project, we recognized very early that no one single organization could deliver what the business needed. And we recognized that to build the best team, we would have to take the best people from multiple organizations. We did that in a couple of different ways. So first of all, we set up a joint venture with our engineering partners, Jacobson PM Group. And then we also split trade contracts across multiple suppliers. I guess having established that team, we then focused on putting the conditions in place to support really effective communication and collaboration. So we invested in the infrastructure to co-locate that full team on site. I think certainly we reap the benefits of all of these decisions.
And finally, Mary, what else would you like to share with the CURT audience?
So I really believe that if we as an industry put safety and quality at the cornerstones of our work, then speedy schedules and lower costs will surely follow.
Thank you so much, Mary, and thank you for weighing in. In Ireland, I think it's somewhere around 9:30 at night or so, and you see we've had quite an international flavor. So again, Mary, thank you so much, and congratulations to MSD. A home stretch, and the good news is we are running a little bit ahead of time. And we certainly are eager to share the next set of awards and the final set of awards, I might add. And those are the CURT Workforce Development Awards. The stalwart for that cause has been over the last several years, Mr. Eddie Clayton with Southern Company. And I'm going to ask Eddie Clayton to say a couple of words, and then we'll recognize those who have accomplished a great deal in this area. Eddie?
Well, thank you, Greg. As I was saying, those of you familiar with CURT have realized that CURT has been involved in workforce development since its inception, realizing that how important workforce development and having a skilled workforce is to our industry. As a matter of fact, each of you, organizations being represented here today, your success depends on having a skilled workforce that's available for our projects. But that has not been easy. With the challenges we've had with workforce shortages, now the pandemic, that maybe people seem to think that we've got an excess. Well, that's not the case. We're still having issues with managing certain projects. And so recognizing workforce development programs is even more important. But owners, I'd like to say that we have a responsibility to make sure that we're taking the lead in this effort, and also requiring our contractors to be engaged as well. And so the Workforce Development Awards are meant to identify and recognize those workforce development programs that are implementing best practices and our processes to get meaningful results. So this year we have put our Workforce Development Awards in two different categories. We have the owner-contractor category. Then also we have the industry association. We realize that by having the resources, at different levels of resources, that we were maybe kind of remiss in recognizing some of the best practices out there from some of the programs that maybe not had those resources. So I'm just proud that we were able to have some recognition of these programs. And so Greg, if you don't mind, would you please read the names of the 2020 Workforce Development Award recipients?
It would be my joy, Eddie, and it pleases me to be able to recognize your contribution to this for many years. You know, I think there are probably tens of thousands of folks who are in the workforce that are a direct result of your and the efforts of your CURT committee on workforce development. So thank you so much for your service to the industry, your work at Southern Company, and being a champion for workforce development. The award winners are as follows. We're delighted to announce that the first one is Turner Industries Group, LLC, and the award recipient here is Ray Neck and Elizabeth Beckham. There you can see the leadership team proudly receiving the CURT award that they have in their possession. Let's hear a little bit more from Turner Industries Group. Rana?
Ray Neck and Elizabeth Beckham are representing Turner Industries Group, who is a winner of the CURT Workforce Development Award for maximizing Louisiana's incumbent worker training program to expand workforce development outreach. Ray, what are 2 or 3 factors that made your program a success?
I'm gonna go a little more than 2 or 3, but it won't take long, I promise. Success in this program is determined by experience, identifying training needs, selecting great training partners, managing the money, communication, and student feedback. As I stated earlier, we're currently in our 9th grant cycle. Each time you experience it, you learn something new and you get a little better. Writing the grant in conjunction with your public training provider becomes second nature, and you're able to decrease the time it takes to get your next grant. With experience, you learn which courses will be most beneficial to your particular workforce and which ones will be most used. You learn to communicate with your vendors, training providers, and your workforce with the skill that allows you to gain maximum benefits from the grant that works best for your company. With experience, you learn who are the best training providers to give you the maximum benefit for your business. For each new grant, you can experiment with new providers that offer different classes that will fulfill specific needs for your particular workforce. The experience you receive by working with them and the student feedback you get will let you know whether or not the vendor or the particular class is one that you would want to include in your next grant. Also, with experience, you learn how to manage the money. Quite often, you'll have some classes that go well and are in higher demand, and other classes that seem to flop. If you did not initially ask for enough training spots for popular classes, don't worry. You can request a budget adjustment, a variation, or revision that can allow you to move money allotted for those less popular spots to the more popular ones. In order to do this, you must keep accurate records in order to see where the money is and where it needs to go. At this time, I'm going to let Elizabeth explain why communication and feedback are extremely important to your successful completion of the grant.
Thanks, Greg. So communication and feedback, specifically employee feedback, are vital to the success of any development program that you're running. On the communication front, that includes the marketing of your courses, letting your workforce know about the available opportunities, the program coordination, and once you have the marketing of the courses and the communication out there, it really enables you to meet the grant's KPIs, your key performance indicators, which will ensure that you can apply and receive the grant again. This is fairly standard. Also, in that part of it, you're going to want to communicate to your vendors that you have employee feedback and evaluation plan in place. A, so they can help you collect the feedback, and B, so they know that you'll have useful information to share at the end of the grant cycle following classes. So let's talk a little more about that employee feedback. In terms of evaluation, we looked at employee experience in terms of reaction, learning, application of information acquired in the classes, and barriers to the application of this knowledge. We also collected supplemental data that can be used in our next iteration of our needs assessment, which is really the driver that helps us identify which courses we need to pull into this grant to best benefit our workforce. The vendor and the instructor feedback is key from our employees, because sometimes what you're marketed is not necessarily what you get in return. So it allows us to have communication with our vendors. Adjustments need to be made to better serve our workforce. And last but certainly not least, the feedback is a part of continuous improvement, which is what this entire grant process is about with each iteration. We make our adjustments and we make it better for each cycle.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today. Thank you for applying for this award. We definitely appreciate everything that you have done to further the industry.
Thanks, Rana, and thanks, Ray and Elizabeth, for weighing in. You know, for some of you who may be new to the owners organization, you might be asking why we're concerned about workforce. If we don't lead contractors and the contractor association strongly, if we don't continue to promote the need for workforce and workforce assessment and assessing contractors based on their workforce development efforts, then you're not going to have the skilled people, as Eddie has shared, that show up on your project. You're going to have less than folks, and that invites safety, that invites quality issues, that invites schedule issues, and it all impacts the cost to the business. So We feel it's important at CURT to make sure that we have the skill sets we need in the trades, and the contractors are leading the way to meet the owner demand. And to take it a little more broadly, the young professionals that are coming into all of our organizations, that they have a keen awareness of the resources available to them so they too can become better decision makers. It's why we do what we do vis-a-vis workforce. The next award winner is Skills Canada Alberta. The leadership team is pictured there along with their award, and the award recipients are Becky Peterson and Alicia Pollock. Rana, tell us a little bit about this crowd.
Becky Peterson and Alicia Pollock join us as the representatives from Skills Canada Alberta, whose Skills Exploration Days was the winner of the CURT Workforce Development Award. Congratulations again.
Thank you.
What was the most valuable internal or external resource that was utilized in your program?
Yeah, I know we're just so lucky to have a very special external resource. And without this resource, a lot of our programs just wouldn't be possible. So this resource is a network of volunteers that is made up of a combination of industry and education experts who bring their expertise, their skills, their dedication to just really help enhance our programs and bring them to life. So Skills Exploration Days is always just so successful because of all these amazing volunteers. So last year, for example, we had 130 volunteers who helped over 2 days. And these volunteers just always exceed our expectations and just bring such a positive impact to our students. And I just always remember reading a student survey after the event was done. And one of the questions was, what learner skill was your favorite? And, you know, a lot of students responded that question with welding. I got to work with fire and sparks. And some students replied fashion technology because I'd never used a sewing machine before, which was super cool. But one response that I'll always remember was a student that said sheet metal was their favorite. And quote, because the workers helping were very helpful and made it a fun experience. And I'll just always remember that quote because the student didn't talk about this cool phone holder that they made out of the sheet metal, actually remembered the volunteers that helped them. So that just goes to show how fun our volunteers were and memorable for that student. And most recently, we've also been tapping into our skills alumni to involve them in a kind of mentorship role for these junior high students. And it's just been so great seeing these young trade and technology professionals pass down their passion and their skills to these junior high students as well.
Alicia, what was the biggest challenge that you overcame and how did you succeed?
Well, I think like many youth-focused organizations, engagement can be a really challenging task. We know that educators have more commitments in the classroom than they've ever had before. And we also know that students have more distractions. So we knew we needed to offer like an interactive, unique, hands-on experience that wasn't an added stress to teachers. And we knew that it needed to be like something students have never done before. And so when our team went to the drawing board, I definitely put our skills team to the test to find a venue that could logistically host the large-scale events that the event did require. And you know, welding sparks flying onto carpet always makes for a lot of red tape and a lot of paperwork to be filled out. So we kind of had a few hoops to jump through, but ultimately, I think at the end of the day, communicating our vision to our stakeholders and having them become invested in the program development was really a game changer for bringing this program to life. And each one of their unique inputs really is what made this program a success.
Well, thank you both. We really appreciate your time today. And again, congratulations on winning this prestigious award.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Rana, for helping us do a deeper dive. Thank you so much to Becky and Alicia. As you can tell, CURT continues to lead the way nationally and internationally on the importance of workforce development, particularly at the skills and the craft level. Sometimes I know, Eddie, it feels like it's 2 steps forward or 3 steps forward and 2 steps back, but we are directionally correct. And we appreciate the hard work that all the CURT workforce development folks offer, not only for the crafts, but also in the past with the young professionals and the new entrants to our organization.
Very blessed to have a great team helping support.
Yes.
Sure.
Yes, thank you, Betty. As I mentioned earlier in the afternoon, sometimes there are razor thin margins in the scoring between the award recipients and those who just barely missed it. And this is no exception as well. There are two honorable mentions that the committee wanted me to share with you. And again, they receive an award, they receive recognition, they're on the website, they have press releases. It's all about moving the rock up the hill a little further than we were yesterday. And I do want to take a moment and recognize those receiving the honorable mention. The first one is the District of Columbia Water and Sewer Authority. You can see the team there. The award recipients are Corey Gray, Jamal Jones, and Sharon Talley. They've done a fantastic job. Again, you can do a deeper dive into what they've done in Washington, D.C. and this important organization with respect to skills development. And we offer our hearty congratulations to the Washington, D.C. Water and Sewer Authority. Hope to see you back next year. The second one receiving the honorable mention is Worley. And the award recipient at Worley, there's their team. The award recipient was sent to Matt Clark. And again, when I see faces, I see results of community, of team, of the Construction Users Roundtable resources being turned into real value for our companies, whether it's Worley, District of Columbia, Procter & Gamble, Turner, and the list goes on. This is where the rubber meets the road, folks, and this is where the hard work and the heavy lifting occur. So as you see these project teams and as you do a deeper dive on our website and in your app to see who's who, I just want to encourage you to take a minute and offer your heartiest congratulations for hard work. This is where value is often created in our organization. We're going to begin to wind down. We are about 20 minutes early, and I hope that's okay for you folks. I want to remind you that if you have not yet registered for the procurement and the contracting webinar tomorrow, there are still spaces available. You can call the office here, or you can access it with CURT via our website at CURT.org. We'd love to have you join us. Also, again, if you are a member in good standing with the Construction Users Roundtable, you're an owner member, you have access to the national conference experience absolutely free. In the past, this has been a $1,500 charge, a $1,800 charge sometimes, depending on where we go. That's absolutely free to you this year, not only to you, but other key members of your team. If you want to know more about that, feel free to call Rana or Rob here at the CURT office, and they'll be able to help you get registered for that as an owner. You'll be receiving some more information on that particular initiative here very shortly as letters and special announcements go out. I just received this afternoon a news report from the governor of Ohio, our own Governor Mike DeWine, who's trying to manage COVID. There are additional restrictions as additional casualties seem to mount. It's a peculiar meeting we're having here a couple of days before the American Thanksgiving for those of you who may be joining us internationally. And amid of all this uncertainty, social unrest, political discord, and a worldwide pandemic that you're all required to manage and manage your resources, your billions of dollars of capital spend, nevertheless, we have a lot to be thankful for. And I hope that during the days ahead, you take a moment to express your gratitude to whomever you feel is deserving of that gratitude. Sometimes just expressing it, I think, is a blessing in and of itself to those of you who hear your words of encouragement and your words of thanks. So on behalf of the entire Construction Users Organization, I do wish you a very happy Thanksgiving, and I'll invite you to take care of yourself and take care of each other. Let us know how we can be of help, standing by to help you do it better, do it faster, do it safer, and do it well. Thanks so much for joining us today. It's our joy to be with you. Take care.